Hey, everyone. I don't even think I need a mic. My name is Margie Graff. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Rockville Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to welcome all of you. And some housekeeping before we get going. The Wi-Fi password is BWP, like for Best Western Premier 2020. Restrooms are down the hall to the left. And I want to thank Rockville Economic Development, Inc., who's in the back, for sponsoring. I also would like to thank our resource partners who are here. WorkSource Montgomery, stand or raise your hand. MCEDC, City of Rockville Procurement, and Montgomery County Office of Procurement. Okay. And this program would not be possible if it wasn't for Rod Burns from Goldman Sachs, 10,000 small businesses. So thank you, Rod. And his wonderful alumni who are here to share their strength and hope with us. Okay, so first thing I'd like to do is invite Mayor Ashton up to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. I wish we were gathering under better times, but when times are tough, it's when we have to gather even more, right? And so I wanted to acknowledge all of you for being here. Thank you for the courage to come forward, because I know it's not easy to say, what do I need to do next and how do we work together to figure it out? I want to thank our distinguished guests. I want to thank the Rockville Chamber of Commerce for pulling this together, as well as Ready. And I would really want to give a shout out as well to our City of Rockville colleagues. Please stand up. They help our city shine. I really appreciate you. In recent times, our nation and this region in particular has been seeing some just daily assaults, whether that's on grants and contracts to our federal workers, things and values that we see, whether that's Vision Zero, sustainability, DEI, people, all kinds of people. And it's distressing. There's so many things changing at once. And it really shows you why local government matters. And I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Evan Glass, for being here. The county has been a great partner with us, working on how do we not only protect our people, but how do we work together to figure out strategies to move forward. We are doing a monthly call with the county to be able to bring all the municipalities together through in addition to being mayor, I serve as the president of the Barrel Municipal League Montgomery chapter. And so we are working together to see how do we figure out strategies moving forward and what kind of resources we need to pull together. In addition, weekly, we're meeting with the Department of Labor to share the stories of what our contractors are experiencing with grantees. A lot of people don't talk about grantees either, right? A lot of nonprofits are also being hit. And then what are our communities facing in terms of people? People who have dedicated their entire lives to providing services for the federal government. Some are two-parent households. And so we're sharing that feedback with the Department of Labor and helping them pivot, right? There's some people who have been fired and they're saying it's for cause, and we know it's not, right? How do we help those people to still apply and let this Department of Labor know those things? There are people who are involuntary retired, right? They're not necessarily voluntary. They're going to have times and lags and when they get those benefits. And then there's the incredible contract community that has been for decades providing and uplifting our government. I worked within the federal government. I was a PMF. I've worked with the U.S. Surgeon General. I've worked with the CMS. I've worked with the Office of Minority Health and the Assistant Secretary. I've had a chance to see firsthand how contractors really keep the government running. I've also had a chance to see how the government plays a critical role in so many aspects of our lives. People don't realize that clinical trials are being impacted. People don't realize that, for example, at NCI, 70% of our cancer drugs started, right? And so the risk is great, but we will not despair, because we know that our country has been through hard times before. And it's when dedicated people come together and organize and strategize and figure out a plan that we can rise, but it also means that the work of local governments and local communities to help us sustain and protect our people and create the safety nets, that intelligence and brain power that your companies bring to bear are going to be so needed by our private sector, by our local governments, by our county and our state. And so I just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge the work that you have done. I think seen and unseen has made our community and our country better. With that said, today's program is really designed to equip you all with the tools, but also to create new friends and mentors to help each other to figure out a path forward. We are fortunate to have an incredible lineup of experts who are willing to share their knowledge, really from looking at financial metrics and marketing strategies to cross-cutting measures and identifying new revenue streams. These sessions aim to empower you to pivot successfully into commercial markets, ensuring the continued growth and resilience of your businesses. As we embark on this journey together, let's remember a couple takeaways. One is embrace adaptability. Change is here, whether we like it or not. By remaining flexible and open to new opportunities, pivoting and figuring out new networks, we can position ourselves to thrive amidst uncertainty. We will leverage our community. Our strength lies in our unity. By supporting one another, sharing resources, and collaborating, we can overcome challenges. We'll also commit to continuous learning. Working with the federal government is one aspect, but now moving to our commercial sectors and local governments are new streams to learn. Let's commit to continuous learning. I also wanted to note that the city of Rockville has been pulling together, in addition to working with WorkSource Montgomery, I want to acknowledge them. I pray for them every day because I know they're doing Lions work on that, helping with job placement. And if you have jobs and know of jobs, I also take that too. Ready, Rockville Economic Development Inc. also is supporting entrepreneurship. So if you need help with anything from learning how to be and getting new skills as a business owner, but also how do I navigate some challenges? They have very strong relationships with lots of lease management and figuring a path forward. So I wanted to encourage you to get to know everyone around the table. And then our city of Rockville, I mean, our local governments do a lot of procurement. Our state government does a lot of procurement. You have resources here from the county and our city, and I know our state is really working. And then again, we're also hiring. The city of Rockville is hiring, the county's hiring. When I checked a couple weeks ago, the state had about 270 jobs. Some of them just represent 1 of 10 jobs, but they put 1 listing. So just there are some opportunities that we're going to continue to work together. I did want to also note that there are some job fairs coming up. So we have Montgomery College did a job fair for life science. WorkSource Montgomery has information about their job fair. I know it's been very popular. The 2 that you're planning. Do you want to share the date?
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday. I know that there will be others as well coming up. And then the city of Rockville has something called Rise and Renew. I have a couple of flyers there in the back table, because in addition to jobs, in addition to training, in addition to filing for unemployment, we wanted to also support mental health and dealing with the anxiety that so many people are dealing with. I've had a chance to go to visit our schools, and our children are feeling what their parents are feeling. So as we go through this, which is hard, we have to remember the human effect that this is having on all of us. Check on your neighbors, check on your children, because they're feeling it. These programs are half off membership fees to some of our rec programs, but we also have completely free programs to support wellness, and they're happening this month and next. And I wanted to just make sure that you have this information. I am here to support you. I'm a partner in this. I think about this from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. I was talking last night at about 10 o'clock to the department, former Mayor Jake Day, who's now the Secretary of Housing, about looking at foreclosure prevention and eviction prevention. The city of Rockville is also, through our budgeting process, looking at increasing our social services, because people who may not have ever needed help will need it. And so we are here to support you. If there are things that you want to share with us, I know that my colleague, Councilman Glass, myself, and other elected leaders want to hear those stories. We then can share what you're experiencing to either advocate and fix that situation, or go to someone who knows the right answer. I have done it time and time again every week, meeting with the Department of Labor, and it has made a difference. So I'll just note that, when when things get busy in an uncertain way, know that we're gonna get even busier. We're gonna work to protect our community and stand with you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Montgomery County Council Member Evan Glass, please come up.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to be brief and say thank you to Mayor Ashton and the city of Rockville for helping host this and Ready and the Chamber and WorkSource and Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. It is a sign that local and municipal government is working for you to protect you. My name is Evan Glass. I'm an at-large member of the Montgomery County Council. I need to leave here to go to an Economic Development Committee meeting on the council that I created a number of years ago. And a lot of people are trying to figure out what the role of local government is in this time. And let me just give you some basis as to why we are doing this work and leading these efforts. Here in Montgomery County, there are 70,000 federal employees who live here. Tens of thousands others are contractors. So national politics is local politics. There is 38 million square feet of commercial office space that the federal government uses here in Montgomery County. NIH, FDA, NOAA, NIST, and what happens with those offices and with that personnel, national politics is local politics. And then also when we have 1/3 of Montgomery County residents who are foreign born, they're immigrants who've chosen to live here and start their lives here. Immigration policy and national politics is local politics. And so all of us coming together to help you is our goal. And there are on the table, there are a lot of different flyers. There are some resources that I have shared as well, because the reality is, while we cannot control what happens down on Pennsylvania Avenue, we can help mitigate the damage on Wisconsin Avenue and Connecticut Avenue. That's where local government steps in. And we have created an extremely strong social safety net so that if you, your neighbors, your loved ones should need the help, we are here to catch you. That is where we come in. We are the last line of defense against what might come down the road. But being here, learning, networking, and improving is the way that we will persevere. And again, the collaboration and the partnership that is exhibited in this room is what local government can do. And so don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website and on the flyers. There's a lot of different resources and you might not need them now. And I hope you never need them. But should anybody need help, Montgomery County and the city of Rockville are here to help you. So I'll stop. Thank you all. And I hope today's a productive day for each of you.
Well, if we haven't learned anything over COVID, it's pivoting, right? Just like we had to pivot today. This room was full before you guys got here with another group, and we had to move them out and redo the room. So thank you for being flexible in your time. Okay, Rod Bourne. Oh my God, I'm not gonna read his whole bio.
Please don't.
But just to let you know, not only am I president of the Greater Rockville Chamber, I'm also president of the Maryland Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, which is 35 chambers throughout the state. That's where I met Rod. Rod is a sponsor of that organization, and when we were asked to put this together, first person I called was Rod. And I'm like, let's bring your alumni and let's do this. So thank you very much, because this program is Rod. So let me give you a little bit about Rod. With a passion to improve people and organizations, Rod has held a variety of leadership roles with stints in human resources, training and organization development, nonprofit development, and leadership programming. He also owns his own business. He's the founder and lead ninja at Down, Set, Lead, a strategic innovation consulting group focused on helping organizations grow their business, and people through coaching, training, and mentoring. I'm not gonna go into the whole thing. Why don't I just right now turn it over to Rod to start our program? And please meet with him afterwards because he does a lot of things and he's a great resource for you and your organizations.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, everybody, how are you? First name is Rod, as in hot, golden lightning. Thank you for getting that. Last name is Bourne, as in Jason's older brother. I taught him everything I know, and I got out. So one of the great things that I get to do is work with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. And there's information on the table about them. There's a really great one-pager that you can look at. It's a great peek out of one of our alumni. I'm going to get to meet several of our alumni today. There's a smaller postcard sized one that tells you in depth about the program. On the back, it has the actual sessions that you go through. And I'll be happy to talk with any and all of you about the program and how it can be a big difference maker. By the way, the cost is free. Tonight, today we're going to be, we have the pleasure of having a lot of alumni coming to talk to you. The program teaches you growth initiatives, how to carry that on, especially through tough times. And when Margie reached out to me, saying, you know, we've got this craziness that's going on in the state. Is there anything that you can do to help? I immediately reached out to our alumni director and I said, hey, we've got a great resource. Do you think we can tap that? And he said, absolutely. And so that's what we did. And so just a matter of a couple of weeks, we're able to reach out to our over 700 alumni here in the state of Maryland and say, if this is something that you feel you can help with, we would love to have your presence and your talent. So these folks are here on their time. They're not getting paid for this. This is something that they're doing out of the goodness of their heart, because that speaks to the level, quality of person that goes through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. We're really lucky. Our leadoff hitter is someone who I'm becoming better friends with each time we get together. His name's Jeff Wilson. Jeff is an all-star in what he does, and I'll take a quick moment to read his bio, but he does an amazing job of being able to explain what finance is and why it is that you need to know what your numbers say. So Jeff Wilson, CPA, CFE, CDFA, feel free to explain what those letters are later on, is a nationally recognized accounting and technology leader with deep expertise in forensic accounting, audit compliance, and financial system design. He is the CEO of the W2 Group, an SBA certified AA and MBE certified accounting and technology solutions firm serving federal, state, and local government agencies. He specializes in aligning financial strategies with operational goals through internal controls, risk mitigation, and cloud-based automation. In December of last year, he was appointed by the governor of the state of Maryland to serve on the Maryland State Board of Accountancy, where he contributes to regulatory oversight and CPA pipeline initiatives. He's also a member of the AICPA, PCPS, and PFS. Come on, man, you're confused with these letters. Executive committee. Anyway, you'll see how much of a superstar he is. Give a hand up for Jeff Wilson. Thank you.
I already had a hard time coming up after the mayor's speech. I was like, you're killing me. So good morning, everyone. Glad to have you all here. This is going to be, this is really tough. Like these great speeches, and you want me to talk about accounting after this. This is not one of those subjects. As Rob mentioned, Jeff Wilson, CPA practitioner, born, bred in the state of Maryland. I'm just so happy to be here to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is not necessarily accounting, by the way. It's just to talk about business and talk to other business leaders about what's going on. And if you take a piece of the room, right, what we're going to be talking about is, I won't talk about pivoting, right? I'll talk about readiness, right? I am my mentor, I'm a Bowie State University graduate, and my mentor was the CFO. And she told me, I remember I told her, I said, hey, you know, one day I want to be a CFO. And she said, Jeff, I hate to break your heart. She's like, you're not a CFO, right? And I said, what? She's like, you have more of a CEO mind, right? And what that meant, I didn't really figure that out until I got a lot older. And it meant that I don't really care about debits and credits. I like getting to the story, okay? You know, I like your kid, I have a 10-year-old, so I'm more than just a CPA. Now I'm a flag football coach and I'm excited. My son, he tells me, try to explain to me why he gets put out of class. I say, so why you get put out? Daddy, well, you know, this happened and this happened. I'm like, dude, just get to the point of the story. Same thing with financials. I want to talk about getting to the point of the story, right? Sometimes as small business owners, we get captivated in these things how many people have accountants that are external? Okay. How many are doing their own bookkeeping and accounting, right? So anybody here like lose their mind because this isn't in the right place, meals and entertainment is not in travel and all these things. That's where people talk to me about that and I say, hey, let's just get to the point of the story, right? So I want to talk about how to get to the point of the story of your business and why that's going to be so key in these turbulent times. I haven't figured out a name for these times, but it's going to be, I call them real interesting, right? There's been some real interesting times as the mayor kind of noted. And so this is everything that Rod couldn't read off. Don't worry about it. It's, you know, just leave it at the CPA part. And I know at least halfway know what I'm doing. And so we'll talk about general purpose of financial statements, right? And I'm going to kind of try to retrain you, or for some of you, you'll be like, oh, okay, I already knew this. But I think that sometimes when you talk to your accountants or your bookkeepers, what is the purpose of it, right? And why are you really doing it? Are you really looking at it to see profit? Are you looking at it for cash? What are those things? I want to talk about formatting, some of the things you want to read, your KPIs, etc., and what you should be looking for. Now, I want to start this off with just the warning label. Mayor's still here, so I won't say any bad words. Okay, you guys have seen this meme where it says, I listen, but we don't judge, right? Y'all heard that? I'll say it. We listen, we don't judge. See, one more time. We listen, we don't judge. Okay, so if I look at your financial statements, I'm gonna listen and don't judge. So I got something to tell y'all today, right? Coming in, I'm not gonna lie. It's not coming in. I seen this over the weekend. My engine light came on in my car, right? So I'm gonna tell you, I need some new brakes and I need some antifreeze, right? And these indicator lights, they came on, and it's tax season. I'm pretty busy, so that's why I haven't gone to do this. Right? I can't find any time between the kid to drop it off. But when I think about driving my car, I think about a business. I think about it completely the same way. You all are driving your lives, small business owners, you're driving your vehicle. Now, how many of us have these indicator lights in our business so we can understand where our businesses are, right? So if your business is running out of gas or it needs gas, where is that particular indicator in your business? How do you know that? And by the way, if you haven't figured out, I'm more of a engaging speaker here. So anybody, what are you all doing? What's in your current processes? How do you know when you're out of cash? How does anybody know you're out of cash? You look at the bank statement. How many people use QuickBooks? Oh, okay. All right, perfect. So does everybody just go to the QuickBooks bank feed and see how much money you got? And then who's managing by bank account? Remember, we listen, we don't judge. Anybody managing by bank account? Okay, one person was there. Okay, I know there's some others, you know what I mean? And so the thing that you want to do when you talk about the financials, and I also worked at the Bureau of Economic Analysis, so I'm an econ nerd, right? So I'm gonna give you a little bit before we get into this. You gotta know where you are, and that's not at the profit and loss statement, where your business is in total for times of crises, right? Is this a crisis moment? I have yet to it's a moment. I don't know what it is yet. It just hasn't evolved yet for me. But what you learn is that what I learned, and I studied, I worked at the National Credit Union Administration. I was over conservatorships, and it's a lot of economic data during the Great Recession, did a Bureau of Economic Analysis through the banking crisis, had to study all that. And I learned something about small businesses, is that I did this kind of internal study and I realized that small businesses needed a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio of cash to current assets to the current liabilities in order to survive, right? Meaning for every dollar liability you had, you needed $3 of cash. Why? Because if you have a crisis, you can bet that the crisis is going to take $2, right? So if you're 3-to-1, crisis is going to take you down to 1-to-1. You're still alive. It hurts, but you're still alive, right? And so when we talk about this presentation, and what I like to talk about is where are you at? I want you to know that 3-to-1, that's your engine light. That part of those ratios on your financials is how you know, are you ready for a crisis or not? I would argue that the United States understood that a lot of the small business community at the time of COVID was not ready, right? And if you can argue with me any way you like. I'm all for the argument or the genuine conversation, but what was that all about? What was EIDL about? What was PPP about? It was about keeping people employed, right? It was about keeping people employed, but it was about how do you keep people employed? The small businesses need capital. If they don't have capital, they're going to lay off people, and there you go. So do we really believe that everyone was on a 3-to-1 ratio? No, we knew they weren't. We knew we had the data to say that, right? A lot of businesses needed that loan. No shame in it. They did need it. Same thing with the EIDL, same thing with the same thing, right? Some people had to take the EIDL. That's another, if you ask me another economic question, I think some people are forced to take it because your competitor took it. You didn't have a choice, really. Even though people thought they did. I was like, you don't have a choice. Your competitor is going to have more money than you, and they're going to just outmarket you, and then, so you take it. But you need to know where you at in these times so you can kind of properly plan. So what I'm going to talk about today is what are the gauges that you need to be looking at in your company to know, well, one, if we have a crisis, where am I at? Am I 3-to-1, 2-to-1, or am I 1-to-1? And I need to go get a small business loan real fast, right? To prepare through that. But that's where we're going to kind of focus on today as we kind of get through that. Any questions? Anybody want to judge already? Okay, no judgment zone. All right. So we want to talk about what's happening in your business, right? So when I talk to my clients, and by the way, if you know, I don't care about debits or credits. What are and write this down and think about this, right? And I'm a philosophical, I guess, CPA. What are the top 5 things that drive your business? And I want you to take this home, write it down now, but just think about it. I'm glad your financials aren't in front of you. What drives your business? The top 5 drivers, right? Obviously, your customers, some point of revenue, but what are the top things that you know affect your business that critically, if they were to snap, and by the way, we're right next door to the government, so you can add that to the top of your list, the federal government, that would cause some damage to your business, right? And you don't have to be a federal government contractor for it to have an effect on you, but just write your five things, top 5 drivers of your business. Then we're going to talk about some actionable insights. We want to talk, you're just going to write that down, and at the end, we're going to kind of talk through this, right? Because I want you to kind of, as I go through these indicators, we're going to go through how to read your pulse here on your business. And then I want you to think about where some of these engine lights I'm going to provide you, they can measure your 5, right? So I'll tell you, I also am a founder of a tech company called Govy Rates. And I'll tell you what I've learned about running a tech company. First of all, don't wake up in one morning as a CPA and say you're going to run a tech company. Very expensive. But here's what happens in tech. What are the drivers of my business? Sales and marketing, people, development cost, right? So, and cost of acquisition. How much does it cost me to get a customer? So in my dashboard of readings, these are the kind of things that I'm thinking about. These are my drivers, right? And so whatever your business is, I want you to kind of think about those drivers and how we can monitor those, right? We don't want the engine light to come on your business. We want you to kind of know. Now, I'm going to do another, a little bit of a study here. Has anyone turned on their car before and heard it kind of rattling? go. Anybody heard any banging, any nicking? Yeah, what does that typically mean? You don't have enough oil, right? Right, sometimes the oil light doesn't come on, but that's the knocking, right? Businesses do the same thing if you're listening, right? But we want to kind of catch that just a lot more ahead of time. So, in writing these things down, we've already talked about the 5. When we get to the bottom, we're gonna revisit this. I'm gonna ask you some things about what's on track, what's not on track, right? Based on these metrics. And that's all that is. I always like to kind of look at, here's my 5 drivers. Are they where they need to be, or are they not? What do we need to work on as we kind of get through this? So first thing, now we're going to talk to the debits and credits. There's a reason why I'm not all into debits and credits. I believe that they should already be correct, okay? So we shouldn't be having a conversation about where something is actually allocated at or where it's placed at. When you talk about small business, and I'm sorry, how many Goldman 10KSB alum that are just, okay, see, oh, okay, we got a lot here, okay. So we shouldn't be talking about bookkeeping. When we're talking about performance, I call myself a performance accountant. When we're talking about performance, we're not here to talk about where something should be categorized, did QuickBooks do that? We're here to look at and say, what's the story, right? What's the story of the company? Now, I always put this up because I still see this. I have companies that have been in business 10 years, 15 years, and they come into my office and they have these very interesting financial statements. And I always say, I can't tell what's happening, right? And then what I always I don't judge, remember? I listen, I don't judge. I don't judge out loud, okay? I say I don't know the story. And the reason I don't is because they have a linear P&L, right? And linear means it's just straight up and down. Here goes my revenue, here goes my expenses. Okay, but if you ever run a business, you know it's not just straight up and down. There's different pieces and levers and centers of the business, right? So in the government contracting, everybody who's doing federal government contractors, okay. Oh, perfect, great. Now, you guys know. Now, what are your different things that drive your business? We have indirect costs, right? We got G&A, right? For some of those with that linear P&L, bookkeeping, consulting, employee benefits. By the way, don't worry if you can't read it, we'll get this to you. Those are G&A, right? And it's easier to read and to say, okay, I know what's going wrong with the business. More in a multi-step approach, a segmented income statement. Your income statement should tell you the story of what's happening. Anyone, when people come into my office and they have that, I know they don't even know their own story. And my job is to recreate their income statement that tell them the true story. So I'll tell you a story about a guy I'm working with. He worked with over the weekend, drove me nuts. And so his story, right? We hadn't defined the story yet. We did everything, and he came in with a linear P&L. He had to go get a loan based on the bank called line of credit. We got to figure this out. Okay, great. So we moved it all up and down, and let's say client had $300,000 a month in revenue, and cost of goods sold. What it cost for him to perform the labor was about, that was 300. He had about $270,000 in costs, $30,000 gross profit, right? Well, that seems great, right? Okay, depending, one person butts in the seat show, but he didn't know his story, like I'm losing money and why. So we took it, we segmented it. Overhead, him and his wife, $20,000 salary, boom. So okay, so you make $30,000 after you pay all your people that do the work. 20 grand goes to you and your wife. And then what happens to G&A? And G&A was, guess what? $20,000, right? Okay, so we start with 100 minus 270, we end up with 30 minus 20 minus another 20. I'm negative 10 in the hole. How are we going to do a cash flow forecast and you're not gonna be able to service the debt. He's like, I don't know what happened. I do know what happened. I listen, I don't judge. What happened was the story was never there in the financial statements for him to kind of pick up on it. So what I say, and what I kind of always try to tell people, whether they're with their bookkeeper, is try to make your financial statement tell your story, right? And it goes two ways, because it's funny, the bank has been willing to work with them because I won't brag, because I've been doing the financial statements for them, so they can see the story, right? They understand the story. They say, Jeff, we know he doesn't have the money. We think we could refinance out of this loan and cut his payment down. That's why. But you can see the story. And in this time, this is going to where we're at right now, right? I'm gonna say we're partial crisis, right? If you have to go get capital, someone's gonna have to, not only you need to understand your story, but someone else, an external reader, is going to need to be able to read your P&L and understand your story. Unless you have something like a website business where there's no people, I'm gonna really push you to a more segmented look on your financials, where someone can really understand where the levers at. What are the drivers of your business? I shouldn't have to ask you. I should just be able to see and say, okay, here's the lever that we can push or pull to bring those costs down. And that story, that every story, I wasn't a really good English major. That's why I went to accounting. Every story has a topic, some sub ideas, or your story, your P&L has a main idea too, right? Some people, for me, and I change over my aging days, it used to be net income. Who's everybody's main topic? Is it net income? What is your favorite metric? Is that what you're always looking at, net income? You're shaking your head. I'm sorry, I had to call you. When you look at, you're focusing on
Gross sales.
gross sales,
Net income.
net income,
Gross sales.
gross sales. Right. So everybody's looking at the top line. Drives me nuts, right? Gosh. Oh, I'm sorry. I listen, I don't judge, right? So I would say this, right? Sales is definitely very important. It's the first start. You got to put something in there. But there's some other pieces you want to know. Let's say sales is grand. I think you all are amazing people. You out here, you guys are out here showing your face. You guys already know how to get money. You already know how to sell, right? Running the car, you already know how to go to the lot, get it off. How do you run the car? How you drive it? To me, my favorite metric, I look at gross profit. I don't even look, if you made $1, I just want to know that you only spent 10 cents to get the dollar, right? That's one of the key things. That's my main idea. My recommendation is you will want to look at that is, okay. And the problem with some of these statements is you can't see certain things. So this was one where this was my linear one. You could see gross profit is 100%. And these are the problems when you do a linear statement. How many people have 100% gross profit? Very rarely ever does that occur, right? Doesn't. But if you do not have your income statement telling the story, this is what will end up happening. You'll overcalculate, or you won't keep in some of your costs. In this shaded area of yellow, we have advertising, all these other things that could really be G&A and overhead costs. So when it's time to cut, you really don't know what to cut because it all looks the same. It's just up and down. And that's why I'm telling you, want to kind of segment this. You can't really tell, for example, here they have salaries and wages at the bottom of the income statement. And that's because QuickBooks somewhat does it by alphabetical order, right? And so now what? Your most expensive cost is at the bottom of your income statement. So the problem with your linear looking P&L statement is it doesn't give you enough details to make certain decisions about which is working or what's not. If the oil light, if you're low on gas or oil, you won't be able to tell. The only time you'll end up knowing is at the income statement, at the net income, which doesn't tell you much about how well you're driving the car or your efficiency. I will tell you this, someone said a drunk sailor, hey, with good water, you can make it to the land, right? And the same thing, some people made profit and they're like, oh, I run a great business. No, you could just be riding a really great wave. And then there you go, right? So Now, in that segmented one, which you can see here, this is a good segmented one. I know here's gross profit, right? I can tell which segments, overhead or G&A, as I mentioned, what are really driving the business. In this case up here, this company is making percentage of income, 19% gross profits, right? And you can really see, oh, okay, I make $19 on every dollar. 19 on every 100, and my problem is I can pay for G&A, so I get 3%, but I got an overhead problem. It's very simple. Now I know where it is. I just say open up overhead and let's go deal with who or what is in overhead, right? Or are our margins off? Can we compare? Can we look at something to kind of say, hey, our margins are not where we want it to be? And what I would tell you all, if anybody that has QuickBooks, I never, it's what I would say from a managerial standpoint, I always look at QuickBooks statements with you can go in there and drop it, have it show you your percentage of income and tell you a bit more of the story than just looking at it straight and down. One of the things that saves you a lot there. And you can calculate the net profit margin on this. That's the other part of what having this segmented, income statement notes, you can actually really see those metrics there. So as I noted, separating the operating and non-operating activities, I had this one last week, $10 million company, and I was like, man, this is interesting, get down to it, and then I seen rental income. And I was like, it's Montgomery County business, medical tech. It's like, what's rental income doing here? But I said, okay, the statements weren't telling me the whole story, right? So we get down and we go through it, and I have assets of houses on the balance sheet. I'm like, oh, it's the houses. And it was all kind of mixed up, depreciation of the house, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, hey, what's this? They said, oh, we had a housing business we ran through the P&L too. I said, so you had a rental property business, you ran it through medical, okay. I said, guys, we can't tell the story of what is the government contractor versus this other stuff you had in here. And when you do those segmented ones, the key thing is you can see your operating business. And there are things that happen that, now this one was just ridiculous with the rental property, but I had another one, very similar thing. They got a grant and guess what? I said, it should not be in the operating. One was in operating, the other one was in non-operating. Why? Because it will jade the story if I were to put it in operating. And that's why it's helpful to have these different sections. Why? Because that grant's a one-time event. It's not really, truly, it helps you last year. It's not going to help you as far as planning for your business. And that's why the setup, the whole dimensions of the income statement is really so important in order for you to kind of see when those on. So I've blast and flash through some of these things as it relates to the profit and loss statement, but I am giving you some things of how you should look at the profit and loss statement, income statement, and what you're going to be able to measure. What you want to look at there, notice I don't really, yes, net income should be a given, but guess what? So it's not on my thing of, oh, what I'm reading. I think the things that you want to focus on there is operating margin, gross profit margin, net profit margin. There's a reason why I don't have net income up there, because if you don't have any gross profit margin, you're not gonna have any net income anyway. So you just start at the top, right? And so that's where I kind of go with that. And the thing that you're going to be able to measure when you think about the P&L, and I'm very conflicted about liquidity, right? When I put this up here, but things that you'll be able to tell by your income statement is how efficient you are, right? How much does it cost you to produce $1, right? Is your efficiency. What cost goes in that? The cheaper you can produce $1, the more efficient you are. And at some point, can't get any more out of the turnip. You got as much as you can, but this is what you can get out of the income statement. Things that I would tell you always to look at and make sure you don't have is abnormal balances, right? And abnormal balances are basically negatives. If you're on your income statement and you see a negative transaction, if you're in QuickBooks, I think QuickBooks does parentheses, I think. those are abnormal balances, balances that shouldn't technically be there unless there's a really, really good excuse. For example, why would advertising be a negative number, right? That doesn't really make sense, right? Yeah, and unless you got a refund. Did you say refund?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you got a refund, right? And by the way, that should have went back in the period that it was earned, so it should.
Fair point.
There you go. So abnormal balances, right? See, sometimes I'm a stickler about the debits and credits. And so you want to make sure that you don't have those before you start looking, before you start kind of beating up looking at your story, make sure you have some of those irregularities out of there. And if you've done enough, just make sure you don't have that opening balance equity account that QuickBooks tends to put in there. It's just the regulators hate it. So from SBA onward, they all lose their mind over it. So talk about, like I said, here's some calculations. I'll give this for anybody that cannot calculate. I zoomed through these. This is just how you calculate these. That's it. I'll also give you the presentation. I go through all this in video, so you'll get that on YouTube. You guys are getting the live version versus I didn't push you off to the YouTube. All right. So any questions about the profit and loss statement? Thoughts? What are you reading? What are you thought? Any things you think about that you want to read that you think you should be seeing from your profit and loss statement?
I just wanna, I wanted to add something, I guess. And that is that I've seen a lot of my clients, don't quite understand what the difference between net income and cash flow. They look at their net income and go, I have $30,000 left over. Why don't I see that in the bank? And that is because your profit and loss is not your cash flow.
Right, absolutely. So
Because debt cannot be put there, so it's tough.
yeah, so this is where I would say that more of, I don't care about debit and credits.
Yeah.
come in. Because if I did, I always play around with this idea, by the way, I never do it, is which statement I should show first. So I keep it for last for that reason.
Yeah.
Is that she's absolutely right. That's one thing that I know why, but she talks, so I won't get too much in it right now. But the key thing is the statement of cash flows is a very, very important statement. It's probably technically the most important statement. It's the hardest one that you learn in accounting school. It's the last thing you learn. And it's the thing that's never talked about it's talked about in a small business, but never ever explained well. But I think I have something for that. So absolutely. So the balance sheet, right? What are you going to get from this? This is about liquidity. Now, I'll tell you my thesis going into COVID. I said, oh boy, we in trouble. I was like, this is crisis mode. Why? I seen enough balance sheets to know that there wasn't enough cash on hand, right? In order to survive this. Everybody was 1-to-1, 2-to-1, which is great. You can be 1-to-1 and 2-to-1 in normal times. Crisis times, this is where the liquidity and your ability, if you have been unable to generate cash flow, you're going to have a bit of a problem, right? I would say we're getting close. Let me say, I think nationally we're getting close. For us, we're in crisis. We're probably pretty there, right? And so what that means is you're going to need more capital on hand, one way or another, that either by getting more, spending less, earning more per dollar, or leveraging some type of loan, right? In order to get more capital for whatever you might plan on doing. For some, it's going to be a pivot. For others, it's doubling down, pressing the gas a little bit harder because we think we have a better opportunity under the environment. It's all going to be different based on your business. For some people, the changes in the federal government will probably be an accelerant to them. I've seen a lot of people with National Science Foundation, anybody in that group, they seem to be pressing their foot to the gas. And people in civilian agencies are kind of on the pivot, and the defense people are kind of figuring it out, right? And so we'll kind of see how that goes. But no matter what, everybody's going to need to be able to measure the liquidity, right, on that balance sheet and kind of figure out where they're going to be at and how they're going to do that. On a 1-to-1, what I thought was that right before COVID came, I had a client, she was in Singapore before COVID hit the US, and she came home, she's like, Jeff, it's this stuff that's out there, they're bleaching the streets. it's gonna get tough, right? She like gave me her forewarning, right? And right on Montgomery, out here. And I said, oh, okay. And she's a very smart lady. And I said, okay. I took her, thought what she said. I said, okay, we gotta go to the bank. And my team's like, why do we gotta go to the bank? I said, we need to get as much money from the bank and everybody as possible, right? And they were saying, why? I said, because the crisis is coming, and he who has the money in their hand before the crisis comes is a better chance of winning. So having your balance sheet look well before a crisis and getting the cheaper capital, that's what I was looking to do. Get all the cheap money before everybody in this room runs into the bank and says, hey, I need some money. I was trying to already be walking out the door and say, I got mine, and okay, let's hunker down. And that was about me reading our own balance sheet, right? We were maybe 2-1, right? And I was like, well, let's get 5-1 and we'll be able to compete more solidly, right? So I was trying to get a 3-1 on it, right? And the liquidity from all the programs kind of help with that. But in general, that's what you want to do. And the balance sheet is the one that tells you that. The things you want to pay attention from the balance sheet, there's some ratios that I would recommend. I personally, 2, working capital. And what that is, cash minus your expenses, right? How much cash is left over, right? That tells you how much you got to play with. Because the government, what I thought about with COVID is I would also know, if you're not keeping track of this, I would measure this. How much cash, how many months of cash, operating cash do you have, right? If we were to shut down, not saying that it's going to happen, but how much do you have? That tells you how big of a punch can you take, right? 1 month, no revenue, 2 months. But if you say, I got 0.5, I got 15 days, then you may want to think about, hey, we need to get some cash into this balance sheet and kind of look at it that way. And so the current ratio, there's some other ones if you do inventory, AP, AR, but I think that one of the biggest things is current ratio and working capital. Once again, no abnormal balances. There should be only one negative account on the balance sheet. Probably is going to be accumulated depreciation. Anything other than that, you should probably ask your accountant why it's there. If it's small, it's small, but you still want it right. I would never, I will also say this, because I do believe businesses in this region are headed to the bank. Never turn your financial statements in with abnormal balances, because it discredits everything that you have going on, because now the statements become a little bit less believable. And so make sure you don't need to be an accountant to know, but just say, hey, if I got any negative numbers here that isn't depreciation, why is it there? And can we fix it? That's what I would tell your accountants, because when the underwriters look at it, it's like, yes, please.
So I am a banker and I work with commercial clients. And you're absolutely correct. It's better to have really clean statements, because it's like any auditor. As soon as they find one little thing, they start digging in deeper, and cash is king. So having foresight of what's coming and going to your banker ahead of time when things look good is the key.
Golden, right? It is, yeah, like, as I said, when as the practitioner, I was like, oh, we need to go to the bank before everybody. Look, this is as good as it's gonna look. Hey, let's go. But the faith, guys, the faith. Third parties want faith in the financial statements that you're presenting. And it's hard to hold faith when we see numbers in the wrong place, abnormals, or like, this morning, I look at too many financial statements that a client, January's healthcare was 38,000, and then February's was 4,000. Something happened, right? Something happened.
In January.
But even if you did, it should have been amortized over the point, right? And so, because even the banker, it's going to end up at the underwriter. And if anybody, I know why the bank keeps the underwriter almost hidden, because if you ever been in a loan process, who hasn't want to, you're not an underwriter, right? Okay, who hasn't want to choke the underwriter?
The client and tells the story and provides.
For the underwriter, right?
For the underwriter.
Right.
The underwriter just sees numbers.
There you go. You notice that we never see, no one ever walks around like, I'm an underwriter. Like, they know better. They know what's gonna happen, right? And so we have, you know, she is she's I'm sorry, your name?
Lori.
Lori is telling our story for us, right? She's our advocate, and they can't advocate well for you if if your statements doesn't tell a story. And by the way, it's very helpful to tell Lori your story. So she has a story that she can help and say, okay, here's the story of this company. Because she's the only one, there's a reason they do not give you the email or the number to that underwriter. And as a result, you want to make sure that you have a story to tell Lori that she can tell to the underwriter. You're selling Lori, she's telling the underwriter, right? I won't say the Lori's selling the underwriter. So this is why being able to have your financial statements in a certain manner, it helps with your story, right? And it's okay. I think that, yes, it's okay if you have an oil light on, but what they want to know, the engine light or the transmission isn't out, right? And that's what your financial statements really tell, and be able to tell that story. And sometimes if you don't have very well presented statements, you may know, and you may be right, it's not something minor, but it looks major just because it hasn't been put together well. So that's what this session is all about from that perspective. And this is general balance sheet. Like I said, I don't go over this too much. I will tell you, you can't see it, but up here, there is a negative cash balance up there. And that's the whole point, right? Is that, hey, you got negative cash of 88,000. Oh, we overpaid something. Those are those kind of things that kind of, get there. Ratios that you want to kind of look at. I kind of put those here. Like I said, we'll get those to you. And so we'll get close to our end here. The most important statement, the statement of cash flows. And by the way, the most unreadable statement if you've ever went into QuickBooks. So I will start with this. This tells everything about your business. I will tell you all this. QuickBooks does have some dashboards, but I'm not a big fan of them. I use pretty much a dashboard app that I connect to my systems, my client systems, so I can read their story. One of the apps I use is one called Fathom HQ. And Fathom reads I can map it to my accounting system, and I can tell it to calculate. It gives me like all the general ones, and then I can calculate my own for the things that I want to measure, right? Like if I measure margin by product, right? So how much am I making on this sale of this particular product is something that's a product that I'm paying attention to, right? We sell 3 products, and the high-end system, I'm always kind of watching to see people are skipping the bottom and going there. So Fathom is one. There's one called Stripe, which is not Stripe, excuse me. Sift, SYFT, which by the way, they have a free version, but the owner told me it's going away. But you may want to get the freebie while you can. And sold it for 60 million, by the way. So but they do a dashboard as well. You can connect it, and it's free for users. And I think they're probably going to grandfather the free ones in, so run in there while you can, if you want to. And same thing, I can read the cash flow statement. This is not an accounting cash flow statement, but it's very simple. Cash that came in from the business was this. How much cash went out because of the business? What did the business produce in cash? This is what I really care about. My clients, they tend to talk to me about journal entries and all this other stuff. And I would tell you, I hear you, but I don't care. I really care about this part right here. How much cash is this business producing? Tell you what, no matter where you categorize something at the end of the day, this one is going to be right. As long as I got all the transactions in, I do know how much cash you produce. I have seen so many companies that have net incomes and produce no cash. As a result, I wrote this blog one time, right around it, called Zombie Companies. That's them. They produce cash, they have net income. And remember, we're here to listen, not judge. So I'm not judging if anybody owns one of these. Is that you want to make sure that you're in a place that you're producing cash, right? The statement of cash flows there's an area, if you go on QuickBooks, operating cash. First thing you want to look at, I would say run it back 5 years. I like it right now since COVID. I run it from 19 to there. And I say, hey, has this company produced operating cash? If it has, great, you pass test 1, right? Now, how much cash? It has another section that says cash from financing or debt. That's basically what it's saying. As long as you produce cash out, great. I'll skip the debt part for this lesson. But then I'm going to the end and saying, okay, what's the change in cash from period to period? And what that tells me is you started out at 0 and you ended at what? Right? If you're a business that produce cash, great. The net income statement, the net income, I can live with it. But what you want to make sure is that you're actually producing cash from operations and net cash flow. If you are not, that means that your car, we need to go do a checkup to figure out what we need to fix for the operations of the car. Okay. Any questions about the engines, the check engine lights of your special life vehicles? By the way, you should take care of them. You don't get to replace these as much as the cars outside.
Will you share this PowerPoint with us?
Yeah.
by email?
Yeah. My boss Brad will get that over. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's also, by the way, on this, I also do it's a video on there as well.
Okay.
So, and I give it back. So you're good. I know you'll miss me, but don't worry about it. I got that there. Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
Hey, no, thank you.
We want to take a quick 3-minute break and
No.
we'll get our panel, okay. Very
It's
good.
gonna take us. So.
Reach out to Jeff if you want on LinkedIn. And if I can have my panelists for
Yeah.
our next session come on up and we'll introduce them in a moment.
There. 3, and then you're gonna be moderating? Yeah. You're gonna stand and be moderating?
Yes.
So we don't need this one then.
Mia, Heidi, and Mercedes.
Is a minor one.
It doesn't matter.
I just didn't want-
I'll message you.
think they wanna see that.
That's next to you. We're gonna.
Could be.
I prearranged.
Okay, so we are now going to be talking about marketing to commercial clients. This is huge because obviously a lot of the folks that are concerned over the that's okay. We'll be able to describe them. A lot of this is about huge changes, and so what we've got are an opportunity for people to take a look at, okay, this is what I'm used to doing. How do I flip over? How do I begin to break into the commercial market and have the same success? So we've got our 4 speakers, and I am going to try to come up with. Actually, I'm gonna let you all introduce yourselves real quick. We'll just make it real quick and easy. So give a quick overview, who you are, your company, if you're a Goldman Sachs alum, which cohort, and we'll go from there. Okay?
Okay.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mercedes Claddy. Well, Mercedes Weston. I'm married now. I am name of my company is Amza Creative Marketing. I'm the co-founder and CEO. We are a Baltimore-based digital marketing and video production company. who operates both in the commercial sector as well as in the federal GovCon space. We also do local and state contracting as well. Our mantra is building connections with communities everywhere. We are MBE certified. We're woman-owned small business on our way to 8A. I'm also an alum for 10KSB cohort 18. Woo, woo.
Yes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mia Horn. I am the founder of Creative Analytics, a digital marketing and content and web design agency, as well, which services or has serviced about 22,000 businesses over the past 20 years across B2G, B2C, and B2B. I'm also the founder of a new SaaS startup called Brandy, BRAND.E, which is a AI powered content platform I'm also an alum of 10KSB cohort 19 and from the area.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Heidi Hiller. I'm the owner of Innovative Party Planners. Sorry, we're just trying to get some check going here. I'm actually out of Baltimore and I have been in business 28 years. So I've survived several economic ups and downs, COVID, and I really felt it was important to come here and share my story with you. I am a graduate of the Goldman Sachs program, Baltimore cohort 15.
Awesome, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Salima Robb. I am the CEO of PJC Construction Company. We've been in business about 25 years, similar to you. And I just wanted to come and share what information I have on marketing from a non-marketing perspective, because that's not my forte. But I think that it's important for, different perspectives to be able to be given so that you can see maybe from your point of view, as if you're not in marketing like I am, but pivoting. And again, there's a lot of pivoting that happens in business, period. So this may be change right now, but this change is going to happen again. So if we establish and adopt some principles for how to pivot, then you can just rinse and reuse.
Awesome, thank you. So let's start off. We know kind of what the lay of the land is now. It's changing seemingly daily. You never know what's going to be coming out of the White House. But what would you say is the main thing for people to focus on in terms of today, if you're going to be marketing to a commercial client? And let's, we'll have time to talk about pivoting specifically, but if you're like, all right, you're going to be marketing to non-federal, non-governmental agencies, what is the one key thing that you would recommend right now?
I would recommend impact. Every day there's new contract cancellations occurring, and it's the time to understand how that is affecting those agencies who hold those contracts or previously held those contracts. Because what happens is we have to come from an approach when you are trying to market. You have to come to, from a perspective of empathy, rather than it being salesy or sales driven. And you have to understand what that impact has done to that organization. How many people have they had to lay off? What programs are now affected by that contract cancellation? Not necessarily what it is that, hey, I can do this for you, but how are you?
Well, impact.
I would say I'm going to repeat what Jeff Wilson mentioned repeatedly in his great presentation, which is your story. Focus on how you differentiate yourself in the market, what is unique about how you solve the problems that you solve for your clients, whether those be government clients, you know, analyze that and figure out how you do that differently so that you can repackage that for commercial clients.
Awesome.
I was going to say a very similar thing. But I also think you want to change the circle that you network in. I think that might be, you know, something like going to your chamber, and so many things that are already happening in Rockville just blew me away that your representatives had to say. Network with each other. I think together you're stronger than you are separated and networking. And you can maybe come up with some really creative things. At least that's what we did during the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
I would say, I would echo everything that they said, but just maintaining a consistent brand presence and diversifying where you're branding yourself, right? Also, get in contact with your Chamber of Commerce, your state representatives, your senators. Those people can help to point you into the direction of things. And then talking to one another is very important, to network with one another. Go to events. Make sure that you have your digital card or your physical cards ready when you go to the events, and follow up. So a lot of times we go and do these events and then the follow-up kind of falls through. One thing that I like to do is, I actually don't take business cards, but I take emails. I will take their business card or take a photo of it, and I'll send my portfolio after, because I'm a construction company. I can give them a snapshot of what we do right there, because it's more detailed than I could fit on a card, right? So just be present and be available and be open-minded in how you are interacting, and expand yourself, expand your network.
Awesome, thanks. So let's talk about networking for a minute or three. I know that one of the groups that I like to network with is one that spreads itself out. It's a singular group. It's called Level 10. And they're based anywhere. They have events between Baltimore and I'll say up down to Severn and then out to Columbia. And the reason I like it is because you can go to, as a member, you can go to any of those locations. They have 3 programs per week. And so by going to the different locations, you're still within technically that network, but you're not going to meet the same people in Columbia that you're going to meet up in Baltimore. And so that's good. So from a networking, you know, it's almost kind of grassroots. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh, networking is like a true power, in my opinion. And it's right now, the most important thing that you can do. You know, just going to all of the chamber events have like exposed me to a lot more people and connections, and you build those genuine connections by going to those events, but definitely networking within. And then there's also like different collectives like the Bow Collective, Jack and Jill, like especially like for women, you know, a lot of empowerment networks that we have, that we can build rapport and trust with each other. They're very important. And also kind of exploring other events like that are outside of your wheelhouse. You never know who you're going to meet, and that gives you an opportunity to ask very important questions. That's another thing. The questions that you ask can definitely open doors that you would never expect.
Thanks.
I would say that you definitely want to network, but consider networking both in person and online. LinkedIn is your friend. A lot of people are still not posting on there regularly, and really I can't urge you enough to do that. If you are pivoting to B2B from B2G, or if you are currently in B2B, you really do need to have a presence on there. Your profile needs to be optimized to explain what you do and how you do it differently. And I shouldn't have to scroll very much to figure that out. But you also need to be communicating regularly to maintain a presence and visibility and awareness beyond the network that may be in your immediate area. I think of it, like dating, if you're in the same circles and you're not finding any solutions, maybe you need to go to online dating or something like that, right? But, the other thing, I actually, am the chapter director of a large, networking organization in the area called Startup Grind. It's free to join that, about 11,000 startup founders and investors in that group. So I encourage you to look into that for events. But the last thing I'll say is networking. You have to be intentional, whether you are at an event with an exhibitor table or a sponsor. You need to make sure that you are capturing the right information, you're identifying qualified leads, and you're following up and you're categorizing the people that you come in contact with into buckets. Who do you need to book a meeting with on the spot versus who do you need to book a meeting with as soon as you get back to the office versus who may you add to a newsletter or something like that.
Right. Cool.
I actually made a slide for you guys. And I think this really helped me when, recently I have switched my focus from social to corporate myself. So in thinking about going from government to corporate, it's a different face. So I had to rebrand what we looked like, rebrand the face that we brought, and even my people had to be retrained in how to speak. So I think it's really important to make sure that your materials that you bring with you or send after in an email, speak to them. Don't take your other material that spoke to the government sector and put it in front of a corporate or even nonprofits, which we work with now. Make sure that you're prepared visually as well. So I think your branding is really important. And I do want to stress and follow up the method that I approach to networking. If I come to network and I meet people, I do not find the meeting valuable if I do not personally follow up with at least 2 people. So I put that on me. And I do want to stress that you don't want to over network because you can't keep up with it. That you really want to invest your time. It's your time. Time's the only resource we have. Go with intent and really purposefully follow up with those that you met that you really thought. And you do the same. Introduce those others we're talking to. You may have met someone, and that's how you're going to grow together in your networking strength.
Ditto. I will just add one thing, have your strategy ready, right? Strategize how you're gonna network it, like, you have the 2 that you wanna go and intentionally have 2 to 5, I would say that's a good number. And that, like you said, she said that you're going to follow up on, but also have your elevator pitch ready. So pitching is important when you're networking. You have to be able to show who you are in a few seconds, right? 30 seconds, a minute is kind of long, right? So you want to up to 30 seconds, say who you are, what you do, and how you can interact with that person quickly. And that helps with the networking too. And just make sure that it's memorable. Look up some sample pitches online. YouTube is a great resource for looking up information. Do research on the companies that you might be visiting. Make sure that you know something about them. How you present yourself and how you show up is important when you're being evaluated and when you're evaluating someone else.
Yeah, I agree. You're reminding me. So I quite often, if I don't accentuate my names, I get Rob Byrne or anything. So that's why I come up with Rob is in Hot Golden Lightning, Born as Jason's younger brother. You will walk away remembering who I am. And you're reminding me that, it's good to have, you're right, you don't want a 60-second pitch. You want a 30-second pitch, but you also want like an 8-second where it's like, I am so-and-so, this is what I do. Let's, have a coffee or whatever. And whatever you can do to keep yourself memorable, unique, or whatever. One of the things that I'll say is, I do Zoom, I do coffee, I do frosty adult beverages. And I get the giggle and you're just personifying who you are. when you're reaching out. So great stuff. All of you hit on something that I find to be incredibly important and underutilized, and that's LinkedIn. And I would love to hear any one tip, and we'll start with you this time on the far end, because I don't want to hear you say, yeah, what they said anymore. I want them to say, you have great ideas.
Agree with them, and then I get my idea though.
Yeah. So any thoughts on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is an important tool. I'm not the best LinkedIn person though. Like on that one, I kind of failed, to be
Okay.
honest. But I'm on it, and I have gotten some great contacts on LinkedIn. But the social media is it's kind of difficult for me. So I'm gonna learn from the rest of the panel for LinkedIn.
Unlike you, I braved it. I spend about an hour a day on LinkedIn. Okay, I do it early before I go to the office. I try to post minimally once a week. I had a goal of being a thought leader in my industry. And you can take what you know so much, and apply it to where you want to go. And you have to put it out there. I will credit Robin from 10KSB, who was my BA in the program, put it out there. What do you want? Let people know. So I put it out on LinkedIn. I posted about this event. I had people who wanted to come but couldn't. Thank you for filming. I also follow certain people that I'm learning from, but I'm also speaking directly to. They have a great messaging app, which is super active. It is absolutely 100% impossible to keep up with all social media. But if you're going to market to corporate, that's where you're going to find them. I don't know how the inquiries are coming, but I think it is LinkedIn. I'm not convinced anymore. I've backed down on all the other social media platforms because my clients aren't there if I want corporate, and they're coming. So I do urge you to make sure your profile is up to date. If you have to, you can put that you were focused originally, but with what's going on now, you know, you are looking to find the clients who can take advantage of everything you have in your knowledge and your warehouse and your people. Put it out there. Don't be afraid.
Cool, thanks.
Can I ask a question to that? What are you doing for an hour?
I go on LinkedIn. I read my feed. There are ways that you can, if there are certain people in your industry that you want to follow, you go to their profile. I think it's a bell that you hit, and it will make sure that it shows up on your LinkedIn feed. I communicate with them if they wrote something that has some resonating with me. I'll put it out there. Right on there, we're having a conversation about it, and you read the other people, so you're learning so much, especially if you're going into a new marketing avenue. It's unbelievable what I've learned. So I feel like I'm in class daily, really, for that hour. I'm investing my time. I'm also using it often. Well, the people that I meet, I will find their LinkedIn and communicate with them before email. I do it there. There's something about LinkedIn, it's still really highly respected. And I love it.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yep, we got a lot of questions.
Well, I'm a new business, and I really need help understanding what sorts of things to post on social media, and how long do you spend on infographics, and do you have to post an infographic every post? And those kinds of things.
I will
What are
tell
your
you,
thoughts on that?
AI is my new best friend.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I dump into AI, all kinds of stuff. That, you know, I have a thought about a post. I want to reach this kind of audience. I want to get remarks. You tell AI everything. You would be surprised what it will give you to post.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my introduction, I own an AI content platform which helps to resolve this issue,
I wrote
so.
it down.
Randy, Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So no, you don't have to post every, the same type of content. You definitely want to mix it up. But again, think about it as value. Think about it as what information would you want to see or learn? But also, one of the best tips I ever heard was figure out one person on LinkedIn who fits your customer persona. Okay? Find a real person that whenever you write or put out any kind of messaging, that you're talking to that person and that messaging aligns with that person. What are all the things they want to know about what you do from the time they realize they have a problem you can solve to the time they're a customer and after? Because you have to cultivate that relationship. With AI, so many people sound the same. And so this is why I created my platform, because it's basically trained on your brand to be able to speak like you, as opposed to using ChatGPT, which sounds like ChatGPT. So you definitely want to mix it up to answer your question. But overall, in terms of LinkedIn, and apart from that tip, again, goes back to your story. You have to be differentiated in your market. And when people are scrolling, think about it again, like an online dating profile, right? You see just a little snippet, that quick, bio, right? Where at the top of the profile. And if I'm scrolling, I'm gonna read that. I'm not gonna read the rest of your profile. So that is what you call maximum real or key real estate. What do you call it? Yep. So just there was another question.
Yeah, in the back.
I just wanted, I'm with Workforce Montgomery, and we have a class. Everything we do is free. So just FYI, but we have a class on April 7th which is Monday, 2 weeks from today. Mastering LinkedIn and headshots. So I did want to throw that out there. We do our training calendars here.
Where is that?
Just wanted you to know that.
Where is that?
Workforce Montgomery, it's virtual.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Please.
Oh, sorry, a question.
Oh, go ahead.
May I add something?
Yes.
I fall in love with LinkedIn
Uh-huh.
because I'm almost kind of newcomers in the area.
Uh-huh.
I started doing some business since early 17. A lot of time when I've been in different networking in DC area, because with the most of these people in the area who live in this area, I didn't go to the same school, same church, same university. I was looking for some topic that can talk to the people. The LinkedIn helped me a lot. I would start traveling in whole East Coast from Vermont to all the way to Key West to find some topics to talk to the people. As soon as I found the better network since last June, I'm a geologist who live in geotechnical engineering business environment, and I start traveling, very short travel to Europe, and wherever there is some topic about geotechnical engineering, I know people love to know, but people have no time to go.
Right.
I start like posting about levies in Netherlands, some geotechnical stuff in like South Europe, and it helped me a lot to make a network with people. And my name is Ali. Normally, I introduce myself, the Asian face who tried to use all Muhammad Ali credit, because I would like people to know me and memorize his face. Somehow, try to push people love me and be in network.
Right.
And I really advise. I think I'm not youngest anymore. I really advise the LinkedIn is a very good social media to connect the people who love falling down in business.
Yep. Awesome.
Thank you. I talk a lot.
Let me let you finish. Please.
Oh, yeah, my fellow panelists, Mia, I am guilty of not posting on LinkedIn, as I should. So I am one of those people, and as I am in digital marketing, that's crazy, right? But actually LinkedIn is it's a gold mine, to find events, to go to. That is where I find a lot of things to attend, because people post about it. Like, I won't post, but I will lurk. So I'm like constantly on there. But, I mean, I will see what's going on, LinkedIn, it just has the most current events on there, or just current happenings, and even news-wise, it lets you know, like, okay, this is what, hot topics are, this is what is trending. And it's important to know that in any business sector, you need to understand what's new and now, so that you can prepare yourself, for things to come ahead.
So I'll add in two quick things. The first is, no, you don't need to post an infographic every time, but the 1 hour or half hour that you put in, because of the way that the system works, it figures out what it is you're liking and to make you more prominent with those people that you connect with. So just by finding that one person who is that key representative of the kind of people that you want to meet, by liking what they say or commenting what they say, you're going to see more of them, they're going to see more of you, and you're going to see more people like them. Second thing that I would add is videos, short videos. By short, I mean 15 seconds or less. And because, pictures are great, no one's going to look at something that's just words. Pictures are nice, but short videos that carry some important piece of information are really where it's at, I think, now on LinkedIn. And the second thing I'll mention is I love it because you meet someone. This just happened with me and my new friend Carolina, who I said, I'm on LinkedIn, because I am, and thankfully she messaged me. I immediately messaged back, said it was great to meet you at fill in the blank. And then whatever connection we have, I'm gonna get you in touch with Cody. And that way I have a calendar. I can go back to all of my messages. How did I meet this person? What is it that we have in common? It's huge. So I had a question in the back there.
I do, for you and Heidi, and, also, the young lady over there, I'm sorry.
Me? Oh,
Mercedes.
Mercedes. I think,
Mercedes.
yeah.
Great name.
And so I find that, so I'm familiar with other social media, because I think, what's supposed to happen is the audience there, they're constantly scrolling, and that's why I'm interested in the hour that you spend in lurking, because what I don't have any empirical data on this, but what I think is that LinkedIn is great for contacting, right? So like if you're a sales navigator, perfect, especially for your corporate types. But in terms of posting, not too many people are like you guys are spending that kind of time there. It's very difficult, even if you have like an infographic or anything like that, you're gonna stop their scroll. Right. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the idea of posting on Instagram and getting people's attention as compared to reaching out with a sales navigator and things of that nature. And if you're doing that kind of marketing, maybe another social, like Facebook, for example.
Or TikTok, or Snapchat, or any of those video based.
YouTube.
I think what Mia said about finding the person you're speaking to, I think they're different people on each platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's the difference. I wouldn't negate LinkedIn. I would add it to, I still post on Instagram and Facebook, but I use those more for my social clients than I do my corporate. I have learned, I talk to a completely different person on those. And it's the same thing with these other like Blue Sky and Threads. I mean, I go on a lot of them. So maybe my hours split up between a bunch, but LinkedIn is the focus. The other thing I would say is don't just lurk, don't just, like interact with the posts.
Yeah.
The more you interact with the people posting, they'll know who you are. And one day you might meet them. And there's somebody that, to me, was somebody I admire and would love to meet. But if you are giving similar thought content back, I think that you gain more respect, and people see that too.
Man,
I just was gonna say, there's a difference between impressions and engagement. So you may see a post and nobody's commenting or liking. It's because there's a lot of lurkers, no offense. But there are a lot of lurkers. They see your content when you look at the impressions, right? But to Heidi's point, I say get on LinkedIn because if you are in B2B, that's generally where you need to be. But does that mean you post different types of content or engage with different types of prospects or continue that conversation in other places? Yes.
one last question.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
but
yeah, go
just
ahead.
really quick, I'm sorry, but I would just wanna add in all of that, on LinkedIn, there is a lot of noise. You know, there's a lot of people posting about all of their experiences. There's a lot of people posting, about the next best thing that they have done. And sometimes when you're seeing all of that, yeah, it can be overwhelming. But you also have to understand and differentiate which platforms are for what. So for example, like you're saying, if you know, you're saying TikTok and Snapchat, you know, those are gonna be for more, in my opinion, where you can relate, more with people like, when it's just like a different level of authenticity. Whereas Instagram is gonna be your portfolio. That is where people they wanna look at pretty pictures, they wanna look at nice things, and Facebook is gonna be for a completely different audience, as that is like kind of geared toward, more, I guess, like an older, society or older customer. So it's just not necessarily like you have to filter through all of what it is that you're looking at or looking through, to identify what it is that you really want to respond to. So that is, I don't wanna like say like this is why I lurk. Just do that. But it's just more so in the intentionality of what it is that you're going to do, or what do you want to do that day, in that moment on that platform.
Real quick, I had the one question back there.
So when it comes to social media, a combination nowadays is bots. They're all over the place. How do you deal with that? Especially how do you manage dialogues or interactions where there are a lot of bots, and how do you keep it from sort of like becoming a noise congested thing? Like we're always trying to make.
I don't know that I have had that noise on my particular comments. I'm not that popular.
Again, I think it's more in how you dialogue back and forth and whether you respond, what you do to report back on those, as to, you know, that the algorithm reads who you are and what you are. I want to give one last second for someone to talk about scaled methodology.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to bring this up just because this is our proprietary methodology within our agency, but I thought it would be helpful for you all to kind of see this, because this is the visual walkthrough of how you actually go to market and grow your business, okay? So S stands for strategize. You need to understand what your branding strategy is, what your positioning strategy is, what your messaging is, and how you're gonna go to market and to whom, and how you solve a problem. Configure means you're putting everything in place, and don't forget to document those things. So whether that be automation, the tools that you're going to use, the people that you're going to employ within your business or externally to help you bring these things to market or get everything ready to go into market. Activate means you are going to market, you're bringing that to market, and that is actually, you know, communicating on social media, going to networking events, writing content, putting your solution and messaging out into the market. And learn means that you need to be measuring your success and your progress and your performance on the things that I just mentioned. When you are learning, you want to have somewhere where you're keeping that data, which means everybody in here needs to have a CRM. You can have a free CRM, but you need a CRM. Don't try to manage everything in your email. Please don't do that. And then expand means you're taking what worked and you're scaling it, whether that means you're taking something that you've done that's worked, say in the government space, and you modify that and you expand into another market. Or you just expand what you're doing that's working in the same market. And then finally, you dominate. Dominate means that you are gaining dominance over your competitors. And you have to keep your eye on what your competitors are doing too, from the beginning and constantly. Don't just check once to see what your competitors are doing. You need to always be paying attention to what your competitors are doing and who your top 3 competitors are. So that's
Awesome. Let's give them an awesome hand. Very, very much. Hopefully you'll all be able to stick around for at least a moment. They can twix and grab you and get more information from you. Thank you. All right. Let's jump into our next panel, which is cost cutting during transition period. I've got Stephanie, Heidi, and Joy here. Hi, Joy, come on up. And you're staying up here, right?
I'm gonna go this way so I can say hi to Selena.
And please remember to talk to your resources people that are around on the side of the room during our break. But I want to, so we know 2 of you, but we've got 2 new folks up here. So I want to give an opportunity for you 2 to introduce yourselves. Joy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Einstein. I'm a partner at Schulman Rogers, which is a law firm right here in Montgomery County. I do exclusively labor and employment law, so I'm here to talk to you about a couple of things related to that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Bagley. I am the founder and CEO of SCB Management Consulting. We provide operational efficiency and digital transformation solutions for C-suite and departmental leaders. This is probably part of the topic. We serve the government and commercial sectors.
And Goldman Sachs.
And I am Goldman Sachs, cohort 20.
All right.
Not quite a year ago, but almost.
Yes, very good. Good. Awesome. All right. So the very first thing we heard our friend Jeff talking about being able to talk about how you measure your success. And one of the things that he was talking about was, you know, making sure that you've got that ratio right. And part of that may mean that you need to cut some things. So that's what we're going to talk about for the next.
Just like we cut.
Just like you cut the power there.
Yeah.
So, so that's what I really want to talk about. And we have a variety of backgrounds up here, and we definitely want to hear Joy at some point about the legalities that we run into when we start considering what it is we're going to do. So, but let's talk about that. You know, quite often people will think I need to make more money, need to make more money, need to make more money. The opposite side of that is I need to cut costs. So off the top of your head, can you either give something that is a major point or a lesson learned from your work that you do with your company about that relates to cutting costs? And I'll start on the far end.
Okay, so I'm in construction. Construction is we have sometimes you have high turnover, sometimes you have longevity, right? So in the cost cutting, I think one of the things that we may do is we might adjust our labor force within the job, but it depends on like what is the job that we're doing. Another thing that we might do is take an inventory of the business. Where are we financially? Where are we spending in materials? Where are we spending in the labor we already covered? It's really labor, materials, overhead, and profit is pretty simple yet complicated in construction. So we may find new vendor sources, right? Where can we buy materials for cheaper? What's the bottom line? Sometimes you have resellers, right? That they have construction materials and they'll resell. Government, a lot of times they have overstocks and they'll have sell-offs, but it's becoming strategic about how you are sourcing the things that you need for your business. And then how are you structuring your labor force? Labor force could be the people that are on the job sites, or they could be in the C-suite. what is the most efficient way to do that? You might find that you don't need an accountant and a CFO. Maybe a CFO can double as an accountant, but just kind of like looking at the skill sets that people have and thinking about your bottom line as you move into other contract opportunities. If you have to do cost cutting, I think the first thing to do is kind of like do a self inventory, and then that would be a guideline for you as you figure out what to do there.
Awesome, thanks.
To focus on the labor aspect of it also, in possibly pivoting what you're offering, you do want to look at your labor force that you have and see if they can pivot with you. I found during COVID, when we had to pivot from live events to virtual events, there really wasn't anybody in my labor force that I point blank said, are you able to do this? I found that I had to I will say, we got some funding, but through, and I worked with my accountant, but I was actually able to let go of staff that I couldn't use. They could go on unemployment, and I could replace the EIDL loans that I did get with other skilled labor that could go in the direction the business pivoted to, which I didn't know, but I asked my accountant. So, that's something to really take a deep, hard look at. I also took one of my staff and got them some training so that they could take on another person's job too, and they still are holding that since COVID. The other thing was I went to my landlord and I asked them if they had other space available that I could move to that was smaller, because I can't keep the overhead. I don't have the same staff. In the end, it actually turned out I didn't move because we also looked at the moving expenses. So, but take a hard look at all your expenses and everything you're spending money on. Can you turn off some things that you just don't need right now, or even how the insurance might relate to less employees, all of that. Yeah, insurance is huge.
Insurance is a big one.
All right, so definitely have some lessons learned. So I think the biggest one is listening to what Jeff said as well. Balance optimism with realism, right? So we started feeling the pinch of the federal government changes last year. So we had a pretty significant contract. And there was a political in office that did not feel comfortable signing off on the renewal of our contract. The career person who we actually work with wanted to. And she said, let's just get through the election and then, we're good. She knew like somebody else would be moving in. So I probably should have made cuts back then, but held on to people and then also had some things in the pipeline. So one is actually a great contract. So this was last September. We're probably getting ready to sign that contract now, but that was 6 months ago, right? So we did feel the effects. I guess I started really realizing in January, like most people, and literally went through line by line, everything on the expense line, and said, okay, what's realistically, right? Taking that top line, and now let's look at the expenses and what can we afford? So I had used cash last year, right? When I wasn't being realistic. And so now we're in the position where we just have to make cuts. So did a lot of what you all are talking about. So everything from negotiating with our leaseholder, insurances, and, quite frankly, we had to let some people go. And so I think the biggest lesson is definitely being optimistic. I'm very optimistic. I know that it's going to turn around, but in order to save the company and everyone else, be realistic.
Thanks.
And I just wanted to touch on adjusting the labor force from a labor and employment attorney, because I see it all. So yeah, I counseled a lot of small government contractors through the COVID era. And a lot of my advice really harkens back to the same advice that I gave during the COVID era, when people would call me and say, hey, can you help me do layoffs? I really have to do layoffs. First, I encourage everybody to think about, like, do you really have to do layoffs? So We know that Biden raised the federal government contractor minimum wage to $17 an hour. That's now been rolled back, so it's rolled back to the Biden era or the Obama era federal government contractor minimum wage, which is $10.10 per hour, or your state or local minimum wage, whichever is higher. So first question is, I know nobody wants to take a pay cut, but you've now been told that you can pay your federal contracting employees a lot less than you were before. So that's one option. You could reduce the hourly rate of your hourly employees. And I know that there are lots of things that could happen if you do that, like negative feelings and blowback, but the economy is not great right now. So when faced with no job or a job for less pay, that could potentially be viable. Then you can think about reducing the salaries of your salaried employees. So this also depends on whether they're exempt or non-exempt, but you have an exemption for your high earners. So your high earners have to make at least $107,000 a year if they want to stay exempt. Everyone else just has to make over $35,000 in order to stay exempt. But also, if there's not a lot of work going on, the exemptions only come into play if you're going to be paying them overtime. And if there's not a lot of work going on, because nobody's got a lot of contracts right now, you could just say, who cares? I can make them salaried but non-exempt, which means you can pay them a salary, whatever salary you want to pay them. And then if they do end up working overtime, you just still pay them overtime on top of that. So that can be a viable strategy too. And I have a lot of contractors now who are doing that. Like somebody who was previously making $150,000 a year, but contract billable, and there's no contract to bill them to, now they're making $60,000 a year, and they had a hard conversation and they're saying, you know, I don't want you to be at $60,000 a year. I don't intend to keep you at $60,000 a year, but please like ride this out with me for another 6 months. And a lot of people are actually taking it, right? Because like things are bleak right now. So think about reducing salaries rather than outright firings. And then some of the strategies that we used during COVID are still possible now. So like a lot of employers then were doing rolling furloughs where, you know, people were working 1 week on, 1 week off. That's still a possibility. And again, for your exempt workers, they have to get their full salary for any week in which they work any time, which is why I like to do furloughs on a week by week basis. So you don't accidentally violate the wage and hour laws there. And I don't know, you want me to stop or should I should cover things not to do that I see from the front lines. If you are running into a cash crunch, I do have a lot of people who call me who say, you know, I don't have enough money to make payroll. So I've just asked everybody if they could keep working and defer payment for a period of time. That is not okay. That does violate wage and hour laws, and in Maryland, they are very, very strict. So if you don't get your pay at your regular pay period, you could be liable for triple damages, so triple whatever amount you didn't pay them, plus attorney's fees. It ramps up very, very quickly. So asking your workers to defer their salaries is not the best option there. If you are gonna make a change to pay structures in order to try to retain people, you have to give them a pay period's notice before you change their wages. And that makes sense, right? Because if you're gonna change somebody's pay, you wanna give them an opportunity to walk with their feet rather than accepting it. So 1 pay period's notice. And then you also want to make sure you closely review any employment contracts that you might have. So employment contracts are kind of rare. Most people just have an offer letter that says, you know, here's your salary or here's your hourly rate. You can change it at any time. But sometimes, you know, certainly for like your higher level people, they might have an employment contract which guarantees them a certain salary. And so if you were to change it, that could potentially be a breach of contract. So look at all your contractual arrangements first.
Is there a resource that folks can go to, aside from the attorney?
You are
Like,
welcome
just
to
get some
call me.
Guidelines,
That is a good question.
like, does the state have them posted somewhere?
Oh, I mean, there are lots and lots of postings. Like if you have questions about what the salary levels you have to pay are, the DOL has, they call them fact sheets on all the salaries and exemptions. every state and local area has fact sheets on the required minimum wage and overtime rates and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, even if you don't want to talk to me, I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
But she's a great person to talk to. So one of the things that I heard a lot, and it reminded me to maybe my favorite class in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program is negotiations. And I can remember one in particular where there was a woman who all she wanted was to see if she could get her rent to not go up this. So, and she was very, very hesitant and reluctant to go after, to go talk to the owner of the property. After the class, she had enough courage in her, and she came back a week later. She said, I got a larger place for less money, and it's in a great location. And so you don't know what you can get. If you don't ask, the worst they can say is no, right? But you never know what's on the other side of that gate. They may be hurting themselves and be like, look, I know that this is a person that their business has been here for 5 or 10 years, and I want to keep them on. So do any of you have any fun, interesting wins or like scary stories about negotiations, things that you would recommend doing when it comes to negotiating with maybe in that kind of situation, whether you had mentioned something that you had mentioned resellers and that, but anything that you've had to negotiate with in the past? Any of it? Yeah,
Well, speaking of lease and landlords, the same landlord who wasn't very helpful during COVID wasn't very helpful when my lease was up. So I shopped it and I actually did get more space for less money and moved. And I negotiated with that landlord because it was during a tough time for all of the building and all of the commercial, I'm in a warehouse, right? So there's so much empty. I negotiated them doing the build out. I negotiated them, like, it was the sweetest deal ever, I have to say. So sometimes, you know, opportunity does arise from this crazy time. And you do want to keep looking for that, you know, what did you say? You said the best thing, being optimistic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And realistic. Yeah.
And realistic.
Realistic, right.
And realistic, but I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised what you can
Right.
negotiate,
Yeah.
in, contracts. Sometimes I negotiate things, I had a contract where they wanted me to, provide them with labor and materials. And, I'm a small business, so I don't have but materials cost a lot of money, guys, and it's just gonna go up for my industry astronomically now with the tariffs and everything, so the company, this one was fun for me. The company was like, okay, well, you're a WBE, we need a WBE participation to fulfill this contract. So, instead of us giving you more work, why don't you just buy these materials? I was like, okay, that's fine, but you're gonna have to pay me to buy the materials, so I'm gonna mark it up, and then you're gonna pay for it. And then pay me. And it worked. I was like, well, okay.
there you go. That's a win-win-win,
Oh,
right?
yeah, so they paid for the materials, we had like a joint check that was written to the vendor. And they paid for the materials, the suppliers came, I handled the materials, we were doing bathroom change out, toilets and faucets and shower heads, fixtures, you know, the like. And so, yeah, we did it and yeah, I felt like that was a fun one.
Yeah.
This might be helpful for everyone. Actually, I was able to negotiate most of my subscriptions, including QuickBooks. So you call them up, and especially if you say you want to downgrade to the free, they will offer you typically that lower rate, you know, to stay in a certain segment. So I did that for Adobe, I did that for QuickBooks, we use a project management tool called Write. All of my subscriptions, I will negotiate. And you know, when you have a certain number of people in the seats, it can actually start to get very expensive.
Right.
So I figured out what I actually do need, and I negotiated all those. On my lease, what I did was, so you know, you start with the the highest, right? You always know what you're willing to go to, and we learned that from Lori. She was absolutely lovely. And so I started out saying, can you just forego my rent, right? And so what I ended up negotiating with them is to, I probably could have done less, but I said, hey, for the next 6 months, and then just tack on those 6 months to my lease. And they were actually, but I started out with, can you just forego my rent? I'm like, okay, how about we just tack on, 6 months to the end of the lease? So it's kind of some negotiation.
Yeah, you are reminding me, my landlord did offer me that, and I did take them up on that.
Yeah.
During the worst part of where there was nothing coming in and we were redoing everything, I called every possible, I didn't have a lot of debt, but we had a truck and they allowed us to not pay for 9 months. And our landlord, we eventually paid it, but they didn't add interest on it. So there are lots of ways to not necessarily cut out that expense, but to postpone it.
Yeah, very good. So for those of you who are readers, 2 books that I can recommend. One is very old, very good. It's called Getting to Yes. And then the other one is Never Split the Difference. So they take 2 different approaches, but they're both very, very good when you talk about negotiations.
Never
Split the difference. Okay. And for anybody who hasn't taken 10 KSB, that is probably one of the best modules ever, was the negotiation module. Lori, yeah.
One more time, the second.
Never split
the difference.
Yeah.
Never split the difference.
In fact, they teach us in law school not to split the difference.
So, Joy, getting back to the work that you do, what's one of the, maybe, I don't want to say necessarily simplest, but what's one of the most common issues that you have come in your office? That it's like, if they had only known.
Oh, man, the payroll thing that I mentioned earlier, where people will just stop paying their employees and defer their salaries, and that's a major error because the penalties are so high in Maryland. I've been getting a lot of calls recently from government contractors asking if I can represent them to file some kind of lawsuit against the government to get their contracts back. That's really, I mean, I don't know, I'm happy to represent you if that's where you want to go and how you want to spend your money, but in all honesty, like, the government has such broad discretion as to where it spends its money, how it administers its contracts, and how it terminates things, and there are usually provisions that allow them to terminate for whatever reason, and so, like, it's not a worthwhile use of your money to try and chase that. If you want help trying to get paid for just those necessary expenses that you have to incur, you can start sending monies to your CO and or sending emails to your CO and to your COTAR saying, I'm running into this unavoidable expense. Can you confirm that I'll be reimbursed for that? And just keep hounding them to at least cut back on what you're gonna be stuck holding the bag for. That's, I think, my biggest piece of advice, like, don't bother trying to sue the government. If you want to jump into a class action where people who have much more money than you and are using law firms like funded by public interest money, you can pursue that avenue, but otherwise not worth it.
Good, thanks, yeah.
That's something. So someone gave me a tip, somebody who's been in the federal government a long time. So we received one of our termination for convenience letters on March 3rd. And they said, go ahead and bill them for March. Like, they pay it, they don't. So they actually paid it, so. Yes, so go ahead and at least, if it happens, hopefully it doesn't, but go ahead and bill them.
Yeah. Any questions from the group? This is a huge, again, you're shifting from looking at, I need to make more money, to, well, let's reduce expenses. Yeah.
I'm curious how you all feel about AI, because AI can definitely help. We have to walk fine lines, but can help to augment. I'm not a proponent of replacing people, but at least not yet. But definitely, what do you all think about, or how can you use that in your business?
Do any of you use AI? Okay, let's hear from the AI users.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know, AI can't really replace my people. But, in the back office, AI can do plenty. So, lots of times when I write communications or I write contracts, I'll write it. AI don't get it to write it for me, but I'll write it and I'll ask AI to edit it for this thing or that thing, and this is what I'm trying to accomplish. How do you think about professionalism? And then there are suggestions that are made. Sometimes I keep them, sometimes I don't. But it's a very useful tool to have like an in-house editor, right? And then sometimes when you're coming up with scheduling for your projects, it's also, you can put in a sample schedule and ask, is this the most efficient? Like whatever it is you want to get out of it, because remember, AI is still a computer, right? And computers only do what you tell it. So you have to be specific about how you want to receive from the AI tool. And I'm only using ChatGPT, but I'm also on board, and I meant to say this in the last segment, that, get into learning AI. So I'm also getting into courses to learn more about AI and different AI tools and functions for my business and just period, because I feel like if we don't do that, we're gonna be behind the time, because that's what's, same way computers came along when I was younger. Now the AI is like the new thing. This is gonna be like the AI generation.
So I remember introducing AI to my staff and they all thought I was nuts. No one has been replaced by it, but one of the lectures I went to, they described it as an intern that you're training. You are never gonna put that intern on your team completely as an intern. This will never be more than an intern, but you need to feed it a lot of information for it to perform the way you want it to. I personally use Microsoft Copilot, thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, that it understands my business because I have a Teams account and a Microsoft account, and that it knows so much about me already. I stay away from ChatGPT and all the generic ones. I am trying to train one that understands my business, and I do find it pretty good. Always edit, never take it and just copy paste. It's an intern.
Oh, one thing about the AI ChatGPT, since I do use it, it learns from you as you go.
Oh, yeah.
So as you put in your information, or you might have a contract or a correspondence editing, it'll take like the history of it. Like I put my portfolio in there for them to give me like a small little, what do you call it? One sheet, right? And it knows a lot about my company. So whenever I bring anything to it in my account, now you have to establish an account, it'll do it from the perspective of what it already knows about my company.
Right.
And I actually do it as well. So we do have to do a lot of proposals. So it becomes a starting point. So to your point, it's an intern, but I've dumped in all of our past proposals. We do project reviews on all of our projects on a regular basis. I've dumped in all of them. And so I'll say, I'll start off by saying, please provide me with a technically compliant proposal outline, right? Because anybody who does government stuff knows, and even when you think about commercial, you think about, okay, an optimal for this particular industry. And then it'll give me something like, well, add more about this particular project that we've done. So it becomes a starting point. And again, we have the paid version as well. So it kind of created this assistant, if you will. But, quite frankly, one of the people that I had to let go was my marketing specialist. And so she did a lot of that. I'll be honest with you, it's so interesting, right? Some of these young people are just reluctant to use AI. And I'm like, AI is going to be our best friend. It is not going to replace people, but it is definitely going to give us time to do more value added things, like reading through the proposal and refining it, and then other things. But it's definitely, it's an efficient, we're all about operational efficiency. It's an efficient, very efficient tool.
Did you have any thoughts to share about it, Maya?
I was just thinking, a lot, I think when it first kind of got a lot of notoriety about 2 years ago, and over the past 2 years, people focus very much on the writing component of it, but I'm telling you, in the next year, it's gonna become agentic, and when it does, it's going to really replace a lot of processes, and it's going to be capable of taking jobs. And what I always say is, it's only going to replace the people who don't know how to add value.
Right.
There's a hand up there.
Yes.
So as someone with some context using AI, just a heads up, if you use an AI too long, it starts forgetting things you told at the very beginning. So be aware that an old AI, in terms of like how long you're using it, could be a liability. And it might be better to just like give each AI like a narrow focus purpose as opposed to just throwing all your data into one thing, because there's like a limited memory to like keep in its head.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So try to be strategic with it.
Just add one more thing.
Yeah.
I guess similar to what Jeff was talking about earlier, I actually use AI to also do an analysis of my financials, right? So instead of me painstakingly going through it, so I'll dump in, I'll be honest with you, I sit on board sometimes and I'll dump in the financials and I'll say, hey, give me a summary of some of the key variances and maybe what some of the drivers are. And is that, comparable to the rest of the industry? So I actually use it for that, so.
Very good.
Question on that directly. Have you consulted with your accountants to find out how accurate that reading really is?
Well,
I'm curious.
I'm dangerous enough that I have an accounting background, so if I look at the numbers, I can see them, but it just kind of summarizes everything for me. And like I said, you sit on these boards, right? And so that I'm prepared for meetings, I'll dump in their financials that they send me.
Gotcha.
And I'm prepared with some good questions, my own analysis and those sorts of things, so.
Great.
Too dangerous. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm from Accomplish. We are AI implementing company. So we implement AI in different industries. Right now we are working on a project where pharma company in North America, they have around 400 users. And they want to make their system well advanced. So what we are discussing is very normal, but what they want is like, okay, can you play? They are asking to co-pilot that can you make a sales order from blah, blah, blah company and make it. So they are making it. So if we design it in a proper way, if you use it in a proper way, then it is definitely going to be very helpful for everybody.
Can I ask you a question since you're in AI? The issue that he brought up about the memory, how would you solve something like that? Or what would you recommend for the layman users, not the developers?
So it's in a general use, of course, there is so it's called machine learning. So machine learning is using all the questions and they are learning by default. That is the functionality of the AI. However, we can twist it, we can help not to store the memory. And in a general use, definitely we can make something by which we cannot, they cannot store the memory. So there are some tricks available which can help.
Can I say one thing about that? And I promise I'm done. Let me say but inside of ChatGPT and inside of most of these common LLMs, which is what ChatGPT is, you can use something called custom GPTs. Inside of Claude, you can use projects. So basically what these are is what he was speaking about, a narrow focus.
Compartmentalizing.
Yes, so you basically train this to be only focused on financial analysts, only focused on writing emails or something like that. So your memory capacity goes up for that use and it won't be trained on a bunch of other things. That's the best thing you can do right now.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Yeah.
I'd like to add, I think you made an expressive point. We are a user experience company and we recently transitioned from ChatGPT solely and Claude, and we've tacked on to Anakin. So what they've done is they're trying to solve this very same issue here in terms of the memory limit. And so Anakin really consolidates a lot of the deep sea ChatGPT and all of the different segments, and it allows you to have everything in one house. And so you can go in individual ones.
Okay.
You have an account for all of them.
Yep.
And so instead of paying 20 some bucks over here, 30 over here, pay one fee for all of them, and then you segment your
Right.
your
Makes sense.
activity. So I think that's a huge solution that's been enacted. Yeah.
Harold, can you spell that for us, please?
ANAKIN. Yeah.
Harold
Was in my Anakin, and then everybody would have gotten it.
Any other questions regarding?
I can-
yeah,
yeah.
anything else? So the one thing that I would recommend is thinking of a cost that, you know, is regular for you, that you can go and try to negotiate. Again, the big thing is if you don't ask, it'll always be no. You never know what's on the mind of the person that's on that other side, and they may see an opportunity for something they're interested in, you know, whether it's extending, you know, I'll stop payment now, but we'll extend for 6 months beyond that, or whatever it is. So I would recommend writing that one thing down that it is. And Joy, I'll give you one last, is there anything else that you really want to warn us about, what not to do, or what to do, or look out for, or what's coming down the road?
Oh, gosh, I'm always doom and gloom, you know, all lawyers are doom and gloom. No, there's nothing else.
Very good. Oh, yes.
We didn't kind of touch on the financial planning part of, cost cutting, but in the financial planning, it might be a good idea for you to squirrel away some money when the times are good, so that you can support yourself when the times are not so good, and just kind of like take a look at your finances and see what it is that you're spending there in different areas and how you can make that more efficient.
Yeah, Jeff was really good talking about that this morning, so. Good. All right, so we'll, Margie?
Which one?
Okay,
Let's
go ahead.
have anything.
Okay, I want to go around the room to our vendors who are here to say a few words about who they are, what they do. And then when we finish that, we're going into the other room for lunch. Okay, so let's call Montgomery County. You can do it from there if you want.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Al Boss. I represent the Montgomery County Office of Procurement, Division of Business Relations and Compliance. I've been with the county for 35 years come March for the second group. And so it's basically like 14 Thursdays in a row up in the Baltimore area. If you want more information about it, please see me. You may also see a yellow sheet on here. Later today, if you're interested, you can participate in what I call a mastermind, a popcorn mastermind. I don't know if I've ever seen it done before, but I've kind of created a very quick, but very impactful mastermind opportunity. If anyone wants to stay for that, you can. We're going to be running one down the road in Gaithersburg later next month on the 22nd. If anybody wants to be part of that, we have limited seating, please reach out to me for that. And are you ready? Oh my gosh, look at this fantastic panel we have here. Give that a hand. And so we have one familiar face. We have Stephanie. Good to have you back up here again. And Stephanie, I've got real short. So Stephanie is just to remind you, she's the founder and CEO of Chief Solutions Architect, SCV Management Solutions. It was founded on Stephanie's more than 30 years of risk management. You don't even look that old. Today, her team of experienced program managers and subject matter experts provide tailored project management, operational efficiency, and digital transformation solutions for the government and commercial C-suite folks. Next to her, we have Bola. How are you? Bola, Adina, so I want to make sure. She's managing partner at MBA Growth Partners, a business advisory firm offering strategic growth and operational efficiencies to support organizations. She has over 20 years experience in the management consulting field,
specific focus on go-to-market strategies, business coaching, and process optimization. What differentiates her is an emphasis on sustainable and repeatable business performance, leveraging best practices, data-driven insights, commitment to results, power her clients' growth and success. And then we have Monica. Hi, Monica. Monica Mack. Monica is a pioneer in the engineering and construction industry, becoming the first ever engineering graduate from Norfolk State University with a degree in electronics engineering. She launched her career supporting the Virginia-class submarine hull program and advanced naval systems engineering consultant before transitioning into building commissioning into building commissioning for some of the world's most complex facilities. In 2010, she was honored with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Turner Dublin Excellence Award for her contributions at the Fort Belvoir Community Hospital campus. So thank you all for being here. Great to have you here. So very interesting topic to start off our afternoon. How to identify new revenue streams. Again, we're all here primarily because of the shift that's coming from the White House. And how do we jump from, if we were focusing primarily on federal government contracts, how are we now doing that to other opportunities, whatever they may be? You know, yeah, they're called nonprofits, but nonprofits also have money too, as well as the commercial sector. So let's talk about that. You know, this to me, ladies, seems to be a real great opportunity to get creative. Yeah. So let's talk about, but before we start getting into specifics, let's talk about the role of creativity in business. So who would like to start us off?
I guess I
Go
can.
for it.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. I guess business is built on creativity, right? And I think part of it is not just being creative in, you know, how you're going to approach the market, but it's continually reinventing yourself. And so this actually happened, not to this degree, in 2019, I think is the last time the federal government had a government shutdown. And that's actually when I started looking at things differently. So at the time, I was pretty much a solopreneur. I had been in corporate America for 25 years. I was an operational finance leader. And I only went into government because I moved back home to Maryland and government made sense, right? Follow the money. And so when that shutdown happened, one, I was fortunate. I was on a type of contract that was already funded. And so basically the contracting officer said, go ahead and do the work. And when we open back up, you'll get paid. But when I looked around, the majority of contractors, that was not happening. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, if I start hiring people and this happens, you have to lay people off or have to have their working capital to hold them. And so in that moment in 2019, I decided I was going to be diversified. So I actually got my certification as a minority and woman-owned business and went after subcontracting at the state and local level. So that was my first pivot. And so quite frankly, that's actually saving me now because, you know, we have state and local work. But I'll tell you, I've intended over the years to go more into commercial, right? And leverage my 25 years in corporate America, my LinkedIn Rolodex. I don't know how many thousands of people I know. And so that is pushing me to do that now. So.
Full of creativeness.
Yeah, I mean, I think business is very much about problem solving. And when we're looking to solve problems, you naturally have to be creative. And I would say, which is, you know, what I'm about to say is something that we can expand upon both in this segment and the later segment. But, you know, we've been in the information age for some time, but I would venture to say that we're going into the connection age or the so what age. So there's a lot of information. I mean, information is no longer in the hands of the few, right? It's everybody got it. Everybody has information. Everyone has ChatGPT, Google. There's nothing that differentiates us based on information anymore. But what's going to differentiate us is our ability to make connections. You know, what is this information saying? Why is it important? How can it apply to the needs and the problems that my clients have? And how can I be the one to help them make the connection? So when you're thinking about creative problem solving, you necessarily need to
get into the business of your clients. It's not enough to just offer just technology, just marketing, just IT, just whatever. We've got to know that complete end-to-end issues that they're running into and become a partner to them from a creative perspective by helping them make the connection.
Awesome, thank you.
I would say the key word is diversify when you're talking about pivoting. I started off in the commercial market. I went from corporate engineering into owning my own firm. And our first clients were in oil and gas. So we started out with a bar that was amazingly high and had to meet it no matter what. And that required a lot of pivoting. It required continuing education. It requires being creative with your budget. A lot of times it requires understanding your client's pain points and speaking to them, even when you're not ready. That's where the continuing education comes in. So you have to use what resources are out there to make that pivot. It's like going on vacation. You know, you're like, where would you rather be today? In Hawaii, in Japan? Well, what are you gonna do to get on your phone to make those things happen? That's the pivot, literally. That's the pivot. So I would think the creativity that you need to draw on comes from diversifying who your ideal client is. What do they need? What do they need specifically from you? So that is where the creativity comes along, but trying to be prepared at the same time.
Awesome. And one more quick question, because I'd just love to hear your thoughts on this. I love what each of you are talking about, continuous learning and that kind of stuff. Leaders read, I think is, you're always reading. I think true leaders are naturally curious. In terms of continuing education, whether it's formal or informal, is there anything in particular that was really a boon for you as you're building your business? And where do you get that education, whether it's formal or informal, to help carry you to the next level? We'll work our way back down.
Okay, 10KSB was pivotal for myself. Like I said, trying to pivot. We were pivoting into government work actually when I entered 10KSB. We started out in Texas and I'm from the DC area, so I wanted to move home. And naturally, like I'm sorry,
Stephanie.
like Stephanie said, you think government when you move home. I actually hired one of the panelists, she's not here yet, a panelist today to help give me a crash course on government systems, and that was Target Gov. They'll be here to talk, I'm pretty sure, sometime today. Amazing, and I'm talking about amazing, worth every penny. We find resources everywhere. I found her through 10KSB once I graduated. Also, we look for community colleges. We look for other businesses to learn and grow from. We've taken on people to do walkarounds with us on our days when we're out on site or talking to our clients, but also spending time with people that understand where you're going and trying to get there too may be a very good source of education that's free.
Awesome, thanks.
I think in terms of continuing education, technology is something that you really can't negotiate. I sort of see it as learning how to read. It's so fundamental to our businesses. And if we think about business being a competitive landscape, which it is, everyone is using technology, and your ability to do something manually or by yourself as an individual compared to others who are leveraging AI and all types of technology in a systematized way, it's just night and day. So I think when it comes to technology, we really just need to double down and really think about what's going to be necessary, either for yourself as an individual or some sort of capability within your team to make sure that you're staying up to date there. So I think that's an important thing. And then secondly, as business owners, I think it's important to continue to invest in yourself as an individual, because the more you grow and learn, not only in terms of all the things that have been spoken about, finances, accounting, all of the things, but also people management, managing yourself, understanding what your own constraints and blocks are, because whatever box you put yourself in, it's a much bigger world out there. So constantly trying to figure out how to push beyond that box is important. So I would say really doubling and tripling down on your own individual knowledge and lessons and constraints is also something to invest in.
So thanks.
So I will second that, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business is probably one of the best programs that anyone can ever, go through. So it was a lot, but it was, I actually had my MBA and this was just at a different level. When I got my MBA, I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur. I was thinking about corporate finance. And so it was phenomenal. But let me backtrack because I originally wanted to be in the Goldman Sachs program in 2018, but I didn't qualify. So I would say everybody who's sitting in this room who has a business, it's like that continual learning. So I was just a sponge, especially, coming from corporate and going into government contracting. I mean, the state, City of Rockville, Montgomery County, there's the Women's Resource Business Center and, Apex. There's so much free programming, virtual and in person. I would say my biggest advice is just to absorb as much as you can with this and Goldman Sachs. And it's not just about the education that you get within the seminar, it's the people that you meet. So our Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business, 40, Selena's gone. Was it 40 people in our class?
40.
Yeah, so we all have this, we were all really tight for a long time. We were together a lot. And so Errol's here, he's on a different panel, but he and I are partnering, right? So you listen to his business, you're like, okay, he does this marketing website. What does that have to do with, project management and government? But guess what? We figured out how to, that we can collaborate, right? We can partner together. If it had not been for being in a lot of these environments, Michelle and I are actually in an organization called BOW. We get together, we're in verticals for commercial and government and that sort of thing. So that being in those rooms, learning and continuing to grow professionally, but building, and I would say, I always take networking, I would say build some true relationships. People that you like, know, and trust, that you feel comfortable kind of attaching to your brand. But that's the biggest thing that I would suggest.
Awesome, thanks for sharing that. And I swear I was not fishing for compliments on 10K
It is true.
but it is true. So, there's a variety. I know that the chamber offers lots of great programming also where people can learn and have that continuous learning. So awesome. All right, let's dive down into the meat of this, ladies. Identifying new revenue streams. When you've got your business hat on, whether it's, you by yourself or with your trusted partners in this, how do you go about saying, all right, folks, we need to grow, we need to find a new direction, we need to pivot, we need to tangent, whatever it is. What's that process look like for you? And can you give us a example of a success that you had with that?
Okay, I can start. I would say, back to the connections, individuals, clients, divisions within federal government, they don't exist as an island. So even if we've been selling to them a particular type of service, they likely have a much wider scope of needs than what we've been supplying to them. So the process we take our clients through is, let's just look at for the past 5-10 years, the different types of contracts that you've had. Who did you sell to, which agency, which department? What are some of the inputs into that department as well as outputs? Who do they report to? Who are the individuals, how much, et cetera, right? Like, let's just do a complete deep dive of the analysis of the work that you've provided. And then from there, let's then start to clump it to see what are some of the needs that we've done, right? A lot of times we don't even know until we've done the analysis. So if we are skewed towards project management within the Department of Agriculture and we've done it really well, then that's great. What we can do then is then, put out a public service announcement to all the, agencies that are similar to what you've provided within USDA to let them know, here's what we've done to organizations such as yourself. Here are the feedbacks that we've gotten. We would like to set up conversations with you and be able to speak with you about, the successes we've had. So that's a direct one-on-one with the types of work you've done and being able to have past performances and references that you can point to right away, but now it's really more about publicizing it and marketing it and really expanding. Really pulling out the insights and the takeaways from it as best as possible. You could put the things on LinkedIn, have one-pagers, do a write-up, and really walk it around to different types of clients that look like the ones that you've done work with. And then on the other hand, another way is to expand either upstream or downstream. So if you've been providing a specific type of, let's say, reporting or technology to a client, let's find out who are the folks who are pushing information into this organization and who are the folks who are getting information out of it. So your ability to organize with those departments, knowing that there's a hub that their outputs are going into, is also something that you can work with them on. So you could say, so let's say we're doing data analytics for one department, but there's an accounting team that collects a lot of the data. You can go to them and talk to them about ways to streamline data, ways to collect different types of metrics, knowing that by the time it gets to this department, it will be a much more organized data set, so you can work with them and partner with them. And then similarly, the downstream partners as well. Is it going into a dashboard that is going to the department level or the, a much higher organization? You can go to them and talk about how some of the reporting that you've used could be better leveraged. And you can start speaking with them from a more strategic perspective. So I think number one is finding clients that are similar to folks that you've worked with and being able to just copy and paste and really share the news, but at the same time expanding upstream and downstream to really become more of a solution provider.
Awesome, great stuff. Monica?
For internally, how that looks is finding out what your ideal customer looks like. Like I said, we started out in commercial and went to government, which is two completely different worlds. So you need to know what your customer looks like. My ideal customer was not oil and gas, honestly. They were the customer that was available. And so we ran with that. But if your customer, pays on a certain timetable, is in a certain industry that you can easily expand into and broaden your horizons. So say you're in IT, a lot of companies like Cisco do use contractors. You have to be on their contractor list. You have to be vetted. You have to be compliant. But the thing is, once you're compliant, they will use you repeatedly once you get their attention. My oil and gas contacts, some of them, those clients lasted 10 years. But here's the thing, you still have to pay attention to what they want and need. And for us internally, we looked at who would be someone who would use our services on a daily basis, somebody who would need us regularly. Then again, you still have to find out what their pain points are. So if you're going into commercial, the easiest way to find clients is to understand their needs and then provide it, period. No one, if you can do that better than anybody else, then you're going to be successful at it. But you have to go after those folks. I would say, not only finding their pain points and speaking to it, but like I said, continuing education, upstream and downstream. Can you expand your services to meet their needs? We follow the markets a lot of times. So the markets will turn green again. We are going back into this administration. Understanding the administration is a big thing. For us, on a year like this, oil and gas is profitable, but green energy isn't. And we do both. So we understand we're going to have to pull back here and push forward here. And then that's diversifying, because when the market changes, green is going to come back because we have to. Green will come back, oil and gas will pull back. But this turns into plastic and real estate. You have to diversify.
you have to understand your market, you have to understand the people that you are going to talk to. And like I said, commercial's a little different. There's not as much red tape into getting into commercial. So go to the conferences, go to these meetings here. You need to meet people that are not just like you. You need to know who your competitors are, because you have to offer it better than your competitor. That's how you win in the commercial market.
Great examples. Thank you very much.
So we start with looking at what has worked in the past. And so sometimes strategies you kind of like stumble into. So one of the big ones that we have is, like I mentioned, we are certified as a minority and women in business. We're actually certified in 23 cities and states. And how that came about is actually I was sitting at a pre-proposal conference in Rockville for the city of Rockville and was sitting next to a gentleman, just struck up a conversation. I promise you, I am an introvert, but one-on-one, I can actually chit chat with people. So we met, and lo and behold, he is a partner at a firm that specializes in state and local business. And that was in 2018. I have since done about 15 projects with them. And so for them, for us, I don't have to do any marketing, which is great. As a small company, like you have it defined where, you know, how much time and money you have. So they know that they can rely on us. And I'm gonna put really good people on their projects, no matter where they are. And so they'll start to say, oh, we're looking to go into such and such state. Can you get certified there? Sure can, right? So I have that with them, as well as part of my corporate career, I was head of global risk management for a couple of companies. And that's kind of a niche. And so I have a global brokerage firm that does the same thing. And so we're gonna expand on that, right? So what other areas can, without, and keeping those relationships in a position of trust. I'm not working with their competitors, right? They know that I'm gonna work with them on these particular contracts. So I'm looking at other opportunities like that where I can create those partnerships. That's the biggest one. But then also, quite frankly, follow the money. It is shifting, but every shift there creates opportunities. And so we're literally have a huge whiteboard in the office. And we're in there, we've been out, brainstorming and quite frankly have a strategy now of what markets are we gonna go after, because there's gonna be clear opportunities. And that it's age old, right? And my area of expertise is different from yours. And so it's, where are those new opportunities gonna be? And how can I differentiate? How can I create my persona of that ideal client? And how can I help them? And coming from government to commercial, you have to talk to them differently, right? You're talking about profitability, right? The government hasn't been talking about profitability. We're talking about return on investment. Like, what are those things that get their attention? Where are their values?
Awesome, thank you. So I'm gonna throw two things out at you right now, and you can choose which one you wanna jump on, or you can jump on them both, keeping even time. So one of the things that we talk a lot about is finding their pain point, and you guys kind of touched on that a little bit. Another one is meeting the right person and how to cultivate that experience, right? So you gave us just a moment ago a great example of a happenstance, but how are you intentional about making that happen? Well, you had talked about going to the conferences. What do you say once you get there? How do you know which conference to go to? Monica did a great job of talking about how to identify what the upcoming trends are, and how she's even diversified so that she knows when to move one section up, one section back, and boom, 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 and what's the next trend gonna be. So jump on any of that, but would love to hear, some details about how you make that happen.
I have one. So I'm not a networker. I absolutely abhor marketing. It's just not my thing. I'm very social, and I would say I'm friendly, but I'm not marketing, okay? So during TIDKSB, that was my pain point. That was my pain point, that I would not market. I would go to the class, I'd raise my hand, I know the answers, but I was not gonna do it. So, so my assignment was to go to a FedCon and meet people. My business advisor told me that's what I was gonna do. So I went, and I didn't talk to people at first, but I decided that I would, this time, identify who was gonna be there and who my ideal client would be to speak to. And I sent out a couple of feeler emails and prepared myself because I'm a prep person. So when I walked in, I didn't really speak to someone. I went to a session, and when the session was over, you know, everyone runs to the front and they're talking to the panelists. And one of the panelists were saying, "Is that her? Is that her?" And they're looking around the room. Then they start the presentation. I mean, sorry, this is before the session started. They go on the presentation and then they started talking about building commissioning. It never come up in a government panel, I guarantee you, ever in life, because most people haven't heard of it. So I was sitting there like, why are they talking about commissioning? And then when the panel was over, they're like, "Is that her? Is that her?" Nobody had ever picked me because I was sitting there like this, like, you know, terrified. And then I finally walked up and I was like, "Oh, I'm Monica." And they're like, "We were looking for you." And I was like, "Me?" They're like, "Yeah, you sent us an email. We did a whole section on commissioning because we knew you were gonna be here." And I was like, "Oh, great." You know, then, you know, all of a sudden the pain, those worries of marketing went away. Come to find out, I was talking to the director of architecture and engineering for the Department of State. I had lunch with them. I got to ask them questions because a lot of times we want to get there and yell and talk about how great our company was. But I asked them, "Well, how did you become director of the Department of State?" And that kind of broke the ice, just asking them questions about themselves and how they got to where they were. And then it became an issue of us talking about what our company provides, how we could collaborate. The easiest way for a small business like mine to get into doing export work overseas, it became a bigger thing, and where I can cultivate that relationship, send emails every once in a while, find out what's going on with the Department of State, find out who their favorites are. That's going to be a big thing. They're not always your competitor. Sometimes they're your teaming partner. Finding out who their favorite construction companies were, also who our competitors were, because it did help. It does. And we use that to actually build a teaming partner to do overseas work. So I would say, first of all, be yourself. I couldn't have walked in that room and handed out a bunch of business cards and high-five people without that prep work, because I'm not that comfortable with people I don't know to do that. There are people that are, and they're great, but that is not me. You know, I will barely post on LinkedIn. If you take a look at my page, it's active lately, but it is not that active. Okay, so be yourself, but go into the room. But you can identify early when you can. Identify those people you need to know. Go in the room prepared. I would say that has been the best thing I've been able to do to break through the ice.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah. I think for sure the preparation is so important because it allows you, particularly as I mentioned earlier, it allows you to help to see what the points of connections could be. You know, a lot of times we go in and we start talking about ourselves and what we do. And a lot of people don't like networking because of that, because it feels too transactional. However, if you've done the work, you've done the prep work, you've really thought through what are the points of connections that we could establish here? And it may not even be that, you know, they are ideal for you as a client, but you can help them make a connection to someone within your network. You can speak with them about, "Oh, I noticed you all are doing this. We don't do it personally, but we know someone that I could connect you to." And as soon as you start doing that, you become a value. And if you give the first value out, then people want to also help you in return. So I always think when you go into a networking space, it's not even necessarily that I'm looking to connect with 2 or 3 people and then go back and they have to fit my persona per se. Yes, I don't want to waste time, but really I'm going in looking for ways to help every individual that I interact with solve problems. How can I be of value? How can I help them tap into my network? So to that extent, it's important for me to keep my network as healthy as possible. You know, keep that relationship really strong so that when I need to make connections of 2 individuals that I think would be perfect for each other, it's something that, you know, people are happy to make that connection with.
So I will say I'm definitely leveraging LinkedIn, and thankfully my friends give me grace because I haven't probably been so good about keeping in contact along the way, but I guess they remember from back in the day. So, a couple of things, that actually I've been doing very recently is just reaching out. So if I might be looking for a particular industry and like somebody I'm really close to, I'm like, hey, you know, can you connect me with such and such a person? And they'll actually do it via email, not just speak via LinkedIn, because they're actually personal friends. So that door opener is extremely helpful. Another thing, Rod, you said earlier about the video, so I'm, you know, not very creative, but I did come up with an idea to do a quick video to get people's attention. I haven't quite gotten into 15 seconds, is at 90 seconds at this point, so I don't know, I guess that's gonna be okay. So, and I'll send it to my friends on LinkedIn, it's like, hey, I'm thinking about sending out this video, what do you think? And then I find that they end up cascading that to people that they know. So just definitely leveraging, the LinkedIn, but then the other thing is leveraging friends. So I actually have, people, friends, colleagues, who are in commercial and want to go into government. And so we've been collaborating, either maybe going after a project directly or just giving each other intelligence, right? Because it's like, they want to know, how do you price for a government contract, which is so different from commercial? And now that I want to go into commercial, they're doing the same thing. I'm like, what do commercial marketing materials even look like? So they're sharing their marketing materials with me, sharing their pricing strategies. So it's just all about collaboration.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah,
A quick question, can you all share your experience, the difference in the sales cycle between government and commercial procurement or sales, depending on where you are? What has been your experience or observation?
It depends on the client, honestly. There's red tape everywhere. So a good client will pay you in 15 to 30 days, but that is your client. You would have to take them as an individual. You won't find the ideal client all the time in either, because even if some of them pay you on time, they may be a pain. So you have to look at it on an individual basis, and you have to adjust yourself internally to that. We heavily reinvest into the company, so the savings is going to be a big part of, regardless which side saves. Telling you save, it will save your business. So I would say your industry is your industry. I'm not a fast food, place, so I'm not gonna make the same money as quickly every day. The pay cycles are still long in engineering. It's gonna stay long. There's not very much you can do except for diversify what you're offering to change that. So if you would like a shorter pay cycle, you may have to offer something that comes out on a monthly or a weekly basis. You have to come up with a product that will speak to that. That's an internal issue. It's not a customer issue, honestly.
And this clarifying question, are you talking about also the sales conversion, like from the time?
Yeah, from point of contact, that was helpful though.
Right.
Point of contact to sign contract or agreement.
It can be long. It can be long, to be honest with you. I think a lot depends on the relationship with the client. So for example, so this is again, keeping your eyes and ears open. I was actually at a reverse vendor fair. So instead of like today, City of Rockville, Montgomery County are here, they actually reversed it, and they had small businesses as vendors, and then procurement people walked around. And so they literally gave us 2 days notice. And I had a pop-up banner made in 24 hours, and I showed up. And so it was actually very fruitful. And then I ended up meeting somebody who was like 2 tables down from me, who was in construction. Again, construction, we don't do construction, but we just hit it off, right? And so we stayed in contact. Literally about 30, 60 days later, he's like, I have a client that needs you, right? So they're in construction. So the way that the things were being managed operationally. So he put me in contact with them. I think I probably, did a get to know them, find their pain points, did a proposal back in September was the first one. We went through several iterations, and I just did a final one earlier this month, but now they're fast tracking our contract. So that's 6 months.
Yeah,
It
that's.
could take longer.
Yeah, that's
But-
typical.
Yeah, and then in the federal government, if you get on certain contracting vehicles like the 8A, it doesn't necessarily have to go through a competitive process if they want to, if you build that relationship. But again, that building of that relationship takes time. So I'd love to hear how quick the commercial, I'm told that it's faster. Is that true?
No, not necessarily.
No? Okay.
Maybe not.
All right. Manage my expectations, okay.
Yeah, if you're working with other small businesses, I will say it can be a lot quicker. One of the, and this is our company personally, we make the red tape minimal to work with large companies. They love that because it can get you in the door quicker. Like I said, stay compliant. You have to follow those rules to stay compliant and stay ready. But a contract could come through the door in a week if you are prepared. But typically that's not the case. Typically it will take months.
I need to be mindful of our time, so it's just about ready to wrap up here and jump on to the next panel. Ladies, any final things, words of wisdom that you have to share?
I will say, and I think it's a little tied to what we talked about earlier, in terms of getting in with a client, it does take a long time and a lot of it is about relationships. But I think it's also important to leverage, I was at Accenture, a consulting firm earlier in my career. And a big strategy that we always used was land and expand. And that just meant that however you can get in with a client, is really the best way to get started, because really what you're selling is your ability to solve problems. And when you become a likable individual who could partner with someone to help them solve a problem so they can get promoted or whatever it is, you become a necessary partner for them. So there were different projects that we would propose, and we still use that in my firm these days, which would be, let's pilot something for you. Pilots are very easy for people to get started with. You don't need someone to sign off on it. You don't need to put a task order out. You could just pilot something for like $60,000, $200,000, whatever it is, particularly when you are helping them conceptualize it, implement it, design it, roll it out, train it. Like if you really think about the end-to-end solutioning of it and you're bringing them something complete, they're more than likely going to say yes to it, particularly if you build that relationship with them. So I think land and expand is something that, we all can really look to double down on. And then in terms of finding opportunities to propose solutions, a lot of times you can look at the IG reports, their strategic plan, the GAO, to sort of see where's this organization going? What are the problems that they're not necessarily looking to put a task order or an RFP out on now, but they're strategically positioned themselves around it. And if you can come in, providing forward-thinking solutions, that once again is a good way to keep the conversation going.
I would say, like I've said before, look at the futures of the market. It doesn't matter what politics are being played at the moment. If you understand what the undertone and how they get paid, that's how you will get paid. But in that, you also have to make them the hero of that story. Your problem, their problem is your, problem to solve for them. And they are the hero of that. Looking at it from that perspective, they will speak you because you have positioned yourself to help them stay on top of the market, help them pivot, help them transition while you're doing it yourself. So keep an eye on the futures, but also make them the hero of that story. It's not about your company or you, technically.
And just in, I guess is follow the money. And, as you research that industry, clearly identify how you can differentiate yourself, because there's gonna be a lot of people who are doing that. So it's follow the money and figure out how you can differentiate yourself within that market.
Awesome. Let's give them a hand. Wonderful job. And we got a couple of speakers up here to join our panel, so let's take a very quick break. If you need to Anything down the hall, food or walking wise, and Earl and Deborah, come on up. All right.
Yes, we already are. We were out of Texas. Oh. No, it's actually not great, but we're gonna change the market. Yeah. I don't know how to say this bit part, but I see ran out of the house. Thank you.
I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody know?
Yeah, we're all getting to know each other.
Let's start in a minute.
I'm not sure. Oh, that's.
Are you the president?
Yes. I have that.
Harold, with Thomas County, Thomas Board of Directors over there. This was my last year. I had 2 years.
That's really good. Oh, yeah. I didn't quite know that. Small businesses, I would get a lot of, from, you know, that I know.
Right, well,
Yeah.
let's get started.
It is, right? Oh, no. Because I never, I was so long. I mean, and just not knowing and it's always long. But a lot of it also.
Okay.
Not speaking out loud, but I would. But yeah, like, it makes it better.
So folks, before we get started with our final panel, I've had a couple of people ask me details about the Goldman Sachs program as to when it starts, what the parameters are and everything. So for the Goldman program, and again, this is on the little flyer that's here. It is 2 years of business, 2 people on payroll, those are W-2s, and 75,000 in revenue. So what we do is we look for the last 2 years, make sure that your P&Ls look good, your balance sheet, and your taxes for the last 2 years. So that's all on the bottom of the front sheet of paper. We are now accepting applications through early June for our program our cohort that starts in September. We run the program 3 times a year. We have a January start, we have a May start, we have a September start. It's 1 full day, once a week. It's typically Thursdays. We're located in northern Baltimore City, very close to Towson. Beautiful location. Do we feed you? Oh, yeah, we feed you.
Yes.
Parking is free. Everything is free. There's no cost to the program at all. So I invite you to talk with any of the alumni or myself afterwards. But hey, it's our final panel and we are going to be talking about building long-term relationships in commercial markets and designing a commercial market outreach plan. So we've got a couple of new people up here. So can I ask you real quick to introduce yourself? Who are you? What's your company and what's your background briefly?
I'm Deborah Keller Green. My company is Keller Professional Services and we're management and human resource consultants. We develop people in companies. We're in the people in company business.
Awesome, thank you. And Barnett.
Oh, I am Harold Jacques. I am with Jack's Media Design Group. We are a full service data-driven marketing communication agency in DC metro area. We are digital modernization is our focus and user experience design.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining the panel. It's great to have you up here. So let's talk about this kind of continuation of the last panel. We talked about how to develop new revenue streams and how to develop relationships. Let's talk about elongating those relationships. You know, it's kind of understood that you meet someone You begin to get to know them. There's the dance, formal, informal dance, however you want to call it. How do you grow that relationship? And how much of it is intentional in terms of a market outreach plan? So whoever wants to jump on that, that's a big piece of meat right there to chew down on, but who wants to take a first jump at that?
Yeah, I'll start. You mentioned that long-term vision, long-term, establishing a long-term relationship, whether or not it's intentional, and how do you accomplish that? Is that kind of the question? Okay, well, primarily, it is delivering on what you promised to deliver. In terms of, if you have a relationship with a client, or if you're establishing a new relationship with a new client, and it's really about understanding what their needs are and delivering on that need and understanding what, and being pretty transparent and pretty open about what you can offer. And if you may not, it may be your first, if you're just starting a business, it is very important to really understand what your skill sets are, what your capacity is, what your capabilities are, and then just listen for what you can offer, and offer what you can to begin with, and then build upon it later. So it does become intentional, but it's really about understanding what you have to offer.
Yeah.
And just being authentic about who you are and delivering on what you promised to deliver.
Awesome, thank you. Paula?
I think gone are the days where you can just focus on what you do, meaning, I'm a technical person, I'm IT, I'm a researcher. That there are additional capabilities you almost have to start off with from the very beginning. Number one is technology, which we talked about, just the importance of it. And if you're not the one who's going to manage that within your firm, identifying some sort of resource to do that. And I would say your relationship management is another one. We've talked earlier about having a CRM system as a tool that you could use to manage it, but really, the relationships, the people, the various leads, quote unquote, that you are running into on a day-to-day basis, either digitally, in person, et cetera, those need to be managed. Otherwise, they just become resources that are, it's sort of like money that's just sitting out there, right? So your ability to really just think about the importance of harnessing and developing a system to manage your relationship as quickly as possible, and developing it into a capability within your firm to the betterment of the organization. So I would say, if that's not something that you yourself have as a strong point as an individual, then being able to, you could outsource it to an intern, someone on Fiverr, a part-time person, a marketing agency, whatever it is. But I just don't think it's to be negotiated. It's a capability that you kind of have to start off the ground with right away.
I would say excellent communication would be the number one thing to leverage a long-term relationship. During the processes, after they are over, you want to keep communicating. That's going to help you build your relationship, your professional relationship with them. And it's more of for us, it's been more of a grassroots kind of growing thing that we built into our, the DNA of us completing projects. So making sure that we communicate, making sure we listen to everybody, and building it as a team. When you're working with your client, you want to be a team, because then they think of you that way, thinking of you as a team brings you to top of mind brings you contracts. So you want to be top of mind, but you want to start out with great communication and continuous communication with the people that you do find. And they don't have to be your client yet. That means anyone that you're interested in knowing, it could be a capability statement, not your government one, something a little bit less daunting, but but a good advertisement and sending it out or asking them how they're doing or if they need anything or offering your help can go a long way.
I concur on that. That's important. For us, as a user experience agency, we particularly use relationship marketing. It's an old form of marketing that probably no longer is being used. The industry that's using it most is pharmaceutical, and they do a good job at it because if they have to sell you something that can kill you, they have to become your friend. So, but we use it and we see it's effective, and it's been around before mankind is building a relationship with your potential client. It's almost like dating. In our Goldman Sachs class, I call it the best class ever, class 2020. We have this saying that we're dating now, and with every client, that's basically what's happening. From the first interaction that you have, you better be building a relationship then. And it's 60-40. When I mean by 60-40, meaning that 30% is about you and the value that you bring. 30% is about the value that you see in the company that you're trying to service. You better be talking and bragging about them. Oh, you can do this, you can do this, and you can do this. And the other 40% is just contract and reality of this is how much it costs. And so if you're not building a relationship, it becomes harder for you to sell. And then when you do sell, when you do get in, that's when the bucket meets the road. The first thing you're doing is collecting information and data. As far as we solved this issue, we solved that issue for you, we also solved this, we help you achieve this goal, and you better write it up and send it at the end of the month. Because if they're not realizing that you're solving issues for us and you're helping us to service our customers, then the commercial client life cycle is going to be really short because everything is fast and furious for them. And it's like now. So relationship for us is we become the main artery in your heart. And we talk about that every day. If we're not becoming the main artery within 3 months, like we want to be, if you unplug us, you fail. You're going to get shocked. And so that's kind of what you want your mindset to be. If you're not getting to a point where they're depending on the service that you're offering, a competitor like me and other competitors, you give them room to slip in there. It's like the client won't budge. I mean, they'll just go with the other client because you haven't really been, doing your part. We call it send flowers as much as often as possible. I mean, digital flowers.
Yeah. So that's what I want to talk about is, and I do want to get into CRMs in a moment, but talking about relationship management, you even said, it's older than mankind.
Yeah.
I would love to hear a specific detail, if each of you could, of a time when you won someone over, or when you solidified the relationship, or you saved yourself because of a snafu that happened or something along those lines. So tell me about sending digital flowers. What does that mean?
So I knew this guy. He worked for a company. I'll say the company name. It's called Advocate for Human Services, something like that. They have huge contracts for the State Department of California and state of Illinois. And he was my buddy. And we have talked on and off about coding and started off about, hey, this is the best coding to use. This is the latest type of use. And he ended up telling his director about me. And with that relationship extended all the way to the dev, it came up in a stand-up meeting about the solution I gave him as a friend. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, they were calling me to solve the issue that I was suggesting.
Nice.
And that turned out to be a long-term contract. And then the relationship came from my friend. Now I had a relationship with the director.
Yeah.
And I had a relationship with the project manager. Now, if you can build a relationship with the project managers and be their friend, you'll always stay in, and your name will always stay on the table.
Nice.
Mine is pretty funny. It's kind of how I got into business. I was in Houston working for a corporate client. And a friend of mine gave me a call, said, hey, can you come help us on this project? It was for an energy company down there. We went out on a trip to a factory test. It went great. You know, I built some relationships that I didn't realize would last very long, but you know, because I was going to assist and had a great time. Some months later, my cell phone rings, and on the other line was probably one of the top 3 largest companies in the country calling my cell phone. And I was like, well, what do you want?
What did I do?
They said, hey, we got your name from someone who'd worked with you from another client, and we have an issue. Can you come in? It's like, no, I work for someone. They're like, bring them in. So I went and had a meeting with this company, and I brought my company with me, and we're like, pitch them. Oh, you know, we're the best company in the world. We want to, you know, take you on as a client. You're the best. And so after the meeting was over, I gave them a call and was like, oh, you know, are we in? And they were like, oh, we hated you guys. Like, we hate you. I was like, oh, okay. They're like, but we want you. So if you start a company, we'll work with you. So I was like, what? They're like, if you start a company, we'll work with you. But don't bring any of those other people with you. So I had a decision to make whether to start a company and quit my job, literally quit my job and start a company or stay in the same situation. And I started the company about 6 months later. But we got compliant. I'm gonna keep saying that, stay compliant. And we took on 2 clients. A first one, like I said, was like a Fortune 5 company. And the second was the city of Houston. Those were our first 2 clients, and they both came from referrals from people I had worked with in the past, and those relationships. City of Houston was a one-off, but the other relationship lasted. We're in our 11th year of business, 10 years.
Wow, that's.
Yeah. My story is, while I was at another firm prior to starting our business, they sent me in as a consultant to work with the HR director at USDA. It was a small project. It was to build out a data visualization dashboard for her. So I went in. I was a one-man team because once again, it's land and expand pilot. So I went in and instead of talking about what it would take to build a dashboard, gather the metrics, and do all of that, she was just complaining about the fact that she's a 15, has been wanting to be an SCS, and there are all these people who are passing her along, and all the other HR directors at the other USDA agencies are just not paying attention to her. You know, she knows what a solution could be. And really, for the first probably 3 or 4 meetings, we didn't talk about any of the project, any details relating to the project. She just complained, and it was exhausted and felt like she didn't have an advocate for her. So then we started, so I realized, I mean, obviously this is my opportunity to really become great friends with her, partner with her. I mean, she started calling me all hours of the night. Hey, did you think about this? Have we thought about this? My daughter's graduating here. What are your thoughts? Like, we really became great friends. And I quickly became a trusted partner just from listening to her. Hadn't developed anything or delivered anything, but the fact that I could sit with her and empathize with her professional goals, her personal goals, that, you know, made her soften to me. And we quickly went from being able to get to the project and then deliver for her. But because she liked me, she introduced me to the 19 other HR directors within USDA. You know, this is a great project. You guys should do it, to the point where it escalated to the department level. So it now became an enterprise solution, something that was a one-off. But because I was sitting, because she knew if she could deliver on this, that would be what would get her that SDS position. And those were the things that we strategized on. You know, I knew there was a pain point. The technology or whatever it is we were delivering was cute, But she's very much interested into what would be her path to becoming an SCS, and that became the larger project. And for me to be able to work with her and help her think that through, it became I mean, we're still there, it became multi-million. I want to say they're probably at about, 15 million or so, rolling out that project, but it started from something very small. So it's really building that relationship and taking your time to do it.
Wow. Well, my story kind of begins with the way I actually started into business. And it started in workforce training and employment. Basically, looking at my experience in becoming in human resources, kind of evolved out of a desire that I had to help people get employed. And so that's kind of where my passion started. And then after training, it became evident that you really don't, your success is not necessarily, well, your success doesn't really stop at training individuals. It is whether or not you can put them to work. And so then we evolved into workforce training and employment. And so we became really focused on, the training, professional development, training aspect of the people business. Always had a vision and a love for organizational development in college. That was kind of my favorite topic. But it's more than a notion when you actually get in business and you try to deliver organizational development. And very successful areas in workforce training. I developed, my background is in business management and administration. My career was built on being a support professional. And so I became expert in offering executive support. So I really understood service. And so kind of graduated and got in terms of developing relationships in business. I was known for workforce development and training, developing curriculum, primarily for administrative management support areas. That was my specialty. I haven't lived that. However, in developing relationships, the market, one of the things in organizational development or in business, that you have to know your external environment. You have to be able to be flexible in terms of delivering based on, what the needs are, what is the external environment, which we talked about earlier, and how do you adjust your services and your market to address the needs of the market. And so at that time it was construction. So I decided it's going to throw, I'm very, successful in, workforce, training individuals and, helping them to navigate and to, on the administrative side, I'm like, well, I can apply that to construction. Well, we did have by word of mouth, got a few small contracts where we were doing post-construction cleaning. So now I am working with mostly men versus females in administrative support, and I'm now working with men in the construction arena. So a little different, but our first couple of projects, we did a good job because I built my team, and I'm big on treating my employees well, making sure that they are taken care of so that we can take care of our clients. But then we got a contract with White & Turner. And that was big.
Yeah.
And it was developing 125 unit community housing project. And it was between new development, a combination of new development and rehabilitating homes in a particular area. So I had to hire a team, and it was challenging because I was learning the business.
And that all came from all the previous work that you had done.
previous work that I'd done, and I knew I had to deliver, so. So when it comes to administration, management, I figured that, figured it out, but the challenge was getting reliable people, to show up in the numbers that needed to do that and to work with an actual construction team, because we had team meetings and then we had to learn how to, read the.
Tea leaves and figure out what you need to do. There you go. Very good.
So, we're still getting invited back. After that experience, I decided we took training with Clark Construction so that we could understand
Mhm.
construction. So I've gone through the training with Clark Construction, so I'm just kind of determining whether or not we're gonna re-enter construction in the future. But we delivered, and,
Very good.
kind of a little shell shocked them.
Well, and that happens, and that's all part of business, right? So,
Uh,
so let's talk, you have a real quick question? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's leading on what they just said in terms of building long-term relationships. I wanted to ask your experience, what happened, particularly in the commercial sector, what is your advice when there's a changing of the guard within the entity where you built those relationships? Because, for example, in my business, the person normally is my chief point of contact who brings me in as the senior most HR person. But there's a turnover cycle about every 2 years or so. So how do you maintain those relationships when your key person is no longer there?
You need to have multiple key persons. You need to spread out and understand everybody there, and you need to make sure they all know you. That's gonna happen. Changing of the guard happens everywhere. You can, if it's a larger company, you can make yourself a preferred provider. We've done that a few times where you go in, you do great work multiple times, and you are on the top of the list to call. So when the changing of the guard comes and they get the list, you're on. That's a great way to do it but no, you have to know other people. You have to kind of diversify, know their assistants, know the people around them, know the people who do the same position, because you still, you have to get that relationship going. So if there's not a list and that person's gone, then someone could, like Errol was saying, there is someone like myself who might see that weakness and come in and say, hey, we provide excellent service in that area, and we will communicate with them until they communicate with us.
I'd like to add to that. I lost a huge contract with Geico because during changing the guard because I wasn't responsive, and I was on top of the list. And when that new person called, I was like, "Who are you?" And then like client services was like, "Who is this?" And they really was reintroducing themselves, but in their way. Like, I'm the new person here and this is what I want. But our response wasn't, it was like, who are you? You know what I mean? So it wasn't as accurate as it should be. It needs to be from a most humblest place you can be, not like we've been doing this, we on top of the list sort of mindset.
Yeah.
So we lost it and then
And I think a good way to know other people is, once again, if you can have a really good relationship with your client, they're interfacing with other people within the organization. And those individuals could be part of their problems, or they could be partners that they're looking to strike up. So a lot of times, once you have a good relationship with your client, you could start talking about, I would love to help you make this project successful. Who should we be marketing? Who should we be talking to within the organization to do a road show to talk about, this amazing solution? Could they consider within their department, or could we build a larger solution? But the point is, you don't ever want to keep a good thing within one department or one person. You always want to find the best way to quickly expand as best as possible, and then start to build those relationships with those individuals. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
In the commercial segment, understand it's not illegal to have lunch.
Yeah.
In the commercial segment, it's not illegal. So if you want, you can either plan one where you pay for stuff, or you can plan one that you just invite them. Hey, you guys want to go out for lunch? You can invite a department. You can invite, you know, multiple people, but the point is to know who those other people are and let them know you. It's not as much red tape, but you still do need to be careful about, you know, how you interact, but it's, you have a little bit more leeway to get to know everyone else that's around you.
Yes, and one of the people that I always make sure that I get to know is the person in the building department. Developing a relationship, not, you know, not just because it's also important to understand how they operate, you know, what, you know, and once you get the contract on paper says one thing, but you have to really understand how they do business and how they pay, and then you have to make those adjustments. And just like in every other department, if you're gonna be servicing that organization, you're servicing the whole company. So you get to know everyone, because ultimately it's going to impact how you do business with that company.
Thanks. Let's jump into CRMs while we still have some time. Do you use them? If so, which ones do you use? How do you use it? And how do you determine whether your system is good?
I do use CRMs.
Okay.
There's many out there. For ourselves, we have our own CRM. We have our own. We own all the information, and it's with our clients and it's with our clients' customers. And so it's called Modic. It's self-hosted on our site. So anything you fill out on our personal website, it goes into our CRM, and we get first knowledge on how to approach that. It's an automated system. What was the other question?
Just what you use, how you use it, and
yeah. So the reason we use it basically to keep our client relationships hot and ready, and so we have a little bit of automation along with it, so that it automatically, depending on the form that you fill, on which page you filled it on. If it's on one of our services pages, we know exactly what the topic is about, and so we have a piece of automation that goes out and reply back concerning that one service. We're not bashing you with the whole entire ecosystem. And so we keep it really fine tuned. And then our goal is to get into the door with our CRM. And then we tell you about our other service, we just don't sell you from there. So it's mainly for our ecosystem relationship going.
Thanks. Okay.
We use HubSpot. We do use CRMs. Our system is not completely automated. We still organically build our relationships, but HubSpot does help keep track of where we are in that relationship with the clients. If we're still courting them, if we've done multiple projects, it also can track the tone and their, I would say, their company culture, because their company culture might not be yours. So it kind of keeps us in line with these people like this, these people like this, these people like this. So we don't use it in the traditional sense of sending out marketing, my pain point again. But we do use it to manage internally how we interact with clients.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, we've used several different CRMs. We've used MailChimp, we've used ActiveCampaign. We're currently using Go High Level. Go High Level is a pretty comprehensive CRM, and it could, if we were using all of the tools within it, it's probably a one-stop shop for all the interactions you need with your client. Go High Level.
Go High Level.
But you know, we use it to send out newsletters. We capture some of our clients' information, some of our leads informations in there. But there are different ways to automate things and create different types of communications. But it's pretty robust. So that's one that you could use. But I think in general, you know, because we've used so many different types of CRMs, and we also have we have ClickUp as a project management suite, which can also be used if you tailor it for a CRM to collect leads and track, you know, where are you in your pipeline development process. I think it's less about the technology. You could use an Excel for all I care. You could use a notebook. I think it's really more about the process of following up. And that's really the habit that you want to develop much more than what is the system. But I think once you can train yourself to, number one, understand the importance of it, and then start to develop a process around it, the tool is almost, whatever makes the most sense for how you want to work, in terms of your decision around it.
Thank you for that. I totally concur. And we're actually in the market for the right CRM. I don't know what it is at this point, but I use Google. I use Google shared drives. I just use the shared drive to make sure that I have the ability to have information in one central location, and that I have the ability to share that information with my clients or share information internally with my staff. And I am just looking to determine what the best CRM, what's out there that serves me now. So I'm actually in the market.
Okay,
But
talk
it's-
with these three.
Yes, I intend to,
Yeah.
yes, but it is just essential that, you have a system. So if, depending on what stage you're at in your business, start with the basis of what you have. And, just organize, just have a system where you can be responsive, where you can communicate internally and externally. And to be able to collect data in a confidentially safe environment for your clients if you're transferring files and data. That's important. And there are different ways to do that. You may have to research it, but you want to make sure that you keep the integrity of your data in place as you are determining that.
Questions about any of this? Yeah.
Maybe how are you all dealing with other systems outside of your CRM and how they're talking to each other? And also tracking the data for every stage of your business, from starting relationships and starting marketing through to retention, and those other systems such as QuickBooks or Google Drive, and how are you keeping all those systems and no data silos is what I'm trying to say.
I'd like to say that it's really important to have a real good back office staff support, because you can, and it's impossible to do it yourself. Well, so you need someone who, a back office person or an administrative person that can support that effort and can lead that effort. So you can pick up the phone and just check all your systems, from your financials systems to your tax systems to your delivery systems, in terms of, how you, project management, cash flow, the whole 9 yards, so, and if you need a good administrative person, I'm the best person to help you find one. That was not a plug, it's true.
Yeah. I think in terms of, so that's a great point. I mean, part of what we do at MBA Growth Partners as well is we do provide sort of the strategy, what are you trying to accomplish, and what are the various processes and systems and performance metrics that you need to track. And we are able to build a dashboard from start to finish to make sure all of the data is being pulled from various systems into one, and then you have a seamless CEO dashboard for you to get a sense for what's happening in your business. I do think there are some other systems that are more comprehensive than others. So I've heard that Zoho is one that has all of the modules that you just mentioned, from lead generation to, their own version of QuickBooks, their own version of documents management. Like, it's a pretty comprehensive suite.
And
So
HubSpot too.
it probably HubSpot. So yeah, so that's something that there's systems that you can look into that has everything. In addition, if you just happen to have siloed systems, ChatGPT is your best friend. So if you need something for data to flow from one to the other, you could ask ChatGPT, what is the best way to do it? And it'll tell you about an API that could be developed to connect data from one system to the other. And then you just hire someone on Fiverr to actually develop it. So the point is, data does not need to be stuck in one system. You can create a comprehensive view of what you need, leveraging AI and latest technology, and then partnering it with, short-term staff or, part-time folks to help you develop it.
We,
Absolutely.
we contract some of it out, but, we have internal servers. So certain information is protected by us, it's not public. We've spent a lot of time developing processes for everything. When I was trained to do my job, I was trained by the Navy. They have a process to use the bathroom if you need it. So everyone has a process and how they're things are supposed to be done. And then we use different matrices to check it, including, communication with our customers. But keeping the data safe nowadays is going to be a really big thing. So you do need to keep in mind who you're using and what they are using to store your data.
I think that's what forced us to go to our own CRM to build it in our aspect, because before Goldman Sachs, I was a one-man show really. And then after Goldman Sachs, I had to build a team to manage client relations. And so we build our CRM in stages: who's warm, who's hot, who's cold, and who we haven't reached, and who we need to reach back out to. The cold people, we allow them to exit the system and go, and do just API and dump them into Google Drive and have somebody else reach out to them. I hire somebody in, Pakistan, say, hey, this is a list that you just need to just bang them with emails, get them warm again. But they're not gonna get my hot leads. I'm not gonna send my hot leads. So it's like every system today must have some sort of way to share data. If it's not, then it's most likely it's a HIPAA compliant system, or depending on what you're doing, or if it's 508 compliant, you wanna protect some of your information, but you want somehow, some way to get stuff out or export a CSV and, something like that. So that's how we approach it in stages. And so we have hot, warm, lead, and cold stages.
Cold goes to Pakistan, warm up. Well, we have time maybe for one more question. Anybody want to? Yeah.
So, Monica, you mentioned staying compliant during your transition over to your own business. Can you speak to exactly what you meant by stay compliant? Where you emphasize that?
Okay, so compliance on the, you understand compliance on the government side? Most of you have worked with the government. The same thing happens on the commercial side. There is a set of background checks. It actually may be more stringent actually on the private side, depending on who your clients are. You may have to do fingerprinting, background checks, the type of insurances you have, who can access your data is going to be a big thing. There's going to be a lot of lists, like you can get a contract with hundreds of pages of compliance on it. And, so you find a broker, and then you find your investigator, and then but we just found our people, kept them, for many years, and they help us stay compliant. So when I get an insurance email, the broker already has that same email. So you need to build a team. But when I say compliance is when you find who you want to work with, they're gonna have a procurement office that's gonna have a list of things that you need to have in order. Have them in order before you approach. If you don't have it in order, it could delay things by months, even years, if you miss something. So when I say stay compliant, once you're in the system, you have a lot of insurance, because they're gonna ask you for lots and lots of insurance. Yeah, so once you've gone through your checklist, keep it going. Keep it going. If they're a great client, they'll make sure they've covered that cost for you. But it can be expensive, and that's why I was saying stay compliant. It's not a specific list. It's going to depend on your client. This is the market that I call a dirty market. And I call it that because we've shifted from green energy back to what works for us right now. And that's why I call it a dirty market. It has nothing. And then I've also seen the facilities. That's a whole nother story, but a dirty market has a lot of compliance internally to the company you'll work with. Green is gonna be a big public compliance. You gotta be on this, you know, with this chapter of this organization, not so much on this one, but you do have to have your papers in order, all of your paperwork in order, financials, everything.
Let's give them a hand. Thank you very, very much. Well done. Well done. Archie?
Yeah, want to call up Kent from Best Western Premier and thank him for hosting us today?
Thank you, Margie. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Really appreciate that. I hope you solved some of the world's problems today. I'm Kent. I'm with the hotel. Proudly the only veteran-owned small business hotel in the entire DC region. We are hosting a job fair specifically for veterans on Thursday, April 3rd. So if you know anyone that has a need for new employment, please ask them to come by. It's free to stop in. We partnered with Mission Barbecue, Maryland Department of Labor, Select Event Rentals. So it's a lot of the community have really chipped in to help these guys out. If you don't want to get married, mitzvah, anything like that, we have an open house on Saturday, April 12th. It's also free. I partner with some local vendors as well. So we'd love to see you come out for that. If you got a high school reunion, please hit me up. We're great for that too. Thank you, Margie, for all you do for us. And thank you everybody for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so panelists, you're free to get up and stretch around again. What we're gonna do is